Chapter 5. My name is Barry Allen and I'm one of the fastest men alive. When I was a child, I saw my mother get killed by something impossible. My father went to prison for her murder. Then an accident made me the impossible. To the outside world, I'm an ordinary forensic scientist, but secretly I used my speed to fight crime and find other people like me. And one day, I'll find who killed my mother and get justice for my father. I am the Flash. Before the particle accelerator explosion, I had a very set belief of principles on how the world works. Rules like gravity kept people on the ground, the sun heated the planet, and theoretical elements were theoretical. After my parents' death, I gave up on my path in science, but after the particle accelerator explosion, my body changed in ways that I never imagined. It restarted my life and now I know what to do. I will use my speed to help Barry and everyone keep this city safe and make my parents proud. Meet Central City's newest speedster, Impulse. Enter the Rogues. 2015. It was a month since their fight with the man in the yellow suit and it affected everyone. Everyone was on edge since the incident and it was kind of hard to usher in the new year after an attack that killed several police officers, the Tachyon device being stolen, Dr. Wells injured, and Barry and Naruto losing to the man in yellow. They searched Central City for days and they couldn't find him, and wherever he was hiding the Tachyon device. Dr. Wells urged them to be cautious and not seek out the man in yellow until they were stronger and faster to fight him, so they spent their time training. Naruto and Barry trained their speed to their limits and increased to about Mach 1.4, but they still needed to go faster. Naruto spent his spare time when he wasn't training working on the arc reactor. They had begun construction of the reactor and with Naruto's speed, they were 20% complete with construction. Naruto liked to keep himself focused on his work with the arc reactor to keep him motivated on moving forward after his and Barry's defeat by the man in yellow. He was still with Linda, but it was a little stressed since she could tell that something was wrong, and he wasn't really able to tell her what was wrong. He hoped that he could change that in the future. Naruto also began his part-time job at the CCPD as Barry's assistant, which consisted of helping Barry at crime scenes, marking and categorizing evidence, and doing the paperwork that went with the evidence. It kept him busy and Naruto was learning some new things. Right now, Naruto and Barry were at the abandoned Ferris Air's runway for another training sessions. Cisco had rigged up some drones with machine guns, missiles, and enhanced aerodynamic capabilities to test Naruto and Barry's agility and skills to their best. Naruto and Barry had 2 drones each on their tail as they ran around the runway while the drones chased after them. They were going slower than they could so that the training tested agility and reflexes instead. Naruto ran down the runway as the drones fired their machine guns at him, so he zipped and weaved from the bullets. He took a quick left as the drones followed him, locked onto his heat signature, and fired 2 missiles. Naruto saw them coming as he quickly took a right, but the missiles kept coming. Naruto quickly tried to come up with an idea when the missiles hit supersonic and closed in on him. Naruto got a crazy idea as he made a harsh stop and a quick turnaround, running straight for the missiles. He then hit the ground and slid forward as the missiles weren't able to keep up and make the quick turn. The targeting computer tried to remain locked on and attempted to nosedive to following Naruto's signature, but they hit the ground and exploded. The explosion force hit Naruto and sent him tumbling across the ground. Naruto groaned in pain as he got back to his feet and quickly dodged to the side to avoid a barrage of bullets from another drone. "Whoa, that was too close," Caitlin said to Cisco, who was controlling the drones. "They said to make it difficult." Cisco replied, "I'm pretty sure they didn't mean to try and kill them." Caitlin told him, "Relax. Remember, this is just a training session to test Naruto and Barry's speed in combat situations." Dr. Wells said as they saw Barry dodge a barrage of bullets while Naruto kept running with the drones on his tail. Naruto ran down the runway, made another abrupt stop and turned around like he did before as the drones fired their machine guns. Naruto ran forward as he managed to swerve his body to avoid the bullets and kept running. He then jumped forward, vibrated his hands, and smashed the 2 drones like they were made of plastic. Naruto landed back on the ground and stumbled on his feet before he rolled on the ground and landed on his back. Naruto smirked as he got back to his feet and saw Barry running from his drones, so he ran back to Caitlin, Cisco, and Dr. Wells. Nicely done, Naruto, Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. Cisco, are you going to bring it? Barry shouted as Cisco looked at Dr. Wells, who smirked. Bring it, Dr. Wells replied as Cisco pressed a button and the drones fired a missile barrage. Barry managed to avoid most of the missiles, but two hit the ground near him and the force sent him flying through the air and he tumbled to the ground in pain. Caitlin, Cisco, Dr. Wells, and Naruto were concerned as they saw Barry get back to his feet and waited as the drones closed in on him. Naruto was ready to go and save him as Dr. Wells inched out of the chair. One of the drones fired a missile as Barry ran and jumped forward, grabbed the missile, and threw it back at the drone, destroying it. Barry flew through the smoke, fire, and wreckage and smashed the last drone with a vibrating punch. Cisco, Caitlin, and Naruto felt relieved as Barry was okay, and Dr. Wells relaxed in his chair. Barry rolled his shoulder and walked over to others. He and Naruto got out of their suits and relaxed in sweats as they ate their fill of Big Belly Burger. Very impressive, gentlemen. Your reaction to stimuli at super speed continues to improve. Dr. Wells said to them. It's still not enough. Barry said. It will be. You keep working like you are, you stay focused like you are, and you will be ready the next time your man in the yellow suit comes around. Dr. Wells said. I think you mean, the reverse flash. Cisco said as everyone looked at him. What? He said it, not me. And he's right. Yellow suit, red lightning, and evil, the reverse of Barry. Meh, Caitlin replied. Actually, I kind of like it. Dr. Wells said. All right, I'm still ready for another round. How many drones do you have left? Barry asked. 2. And, they've got lasers. Cisco said. No, Caitlin and Dr. Wells said. Barry and Naruto kept training for about a few more hours when they stopped for the day. They went back to Star Labs where Caitlin gave them a quick checkup and they were cleared. Barry went back to his apartment while Naruto was on his way back to the shelter. He took a shower, got dressed in jeans, sneakers, a black shirt, and crimson hoodie and walked into the kitchen to get a snack. He walked in and saw some of the kids at one of the tables doing their homework. He smiled as he walked over and got a bag of chips from the cabinet and walked over to help them. He helped them with their math and science homework with ease since it was all easy to Naruto. Naruto heard as he saw Tsunade walk in. Linda's here. Oh, okay. I'll be right there, Naruto said as he got up and walked into the atrium to see Linda there. Hey, Linda, what are you doing here? Did we have date night? No, I just thought I'd surprise you, Linda said with a smile as Naruto chuckled. And I'm surprised. What brought this on? Naruto asked. Well, I've noticed things have been a little rough lately. Maybe, we could talk, Linda said as Naruto nodded. Listen, if this is about how I've been acting the past month, I'm sorry. It's just, I've been a little stressed at Star Labs and now I have the part-time job helping Barry at CCPD and things have gotten a little hectic. But I'm okay now, and things will get back to normal with us, Naruto said. Normal sounds good, although I prefer a little excitement every now and then, Linda said as Naruto chuckled. Well, I can promise you some excitement if you're stuck with me, Naruto joked. So, we're okay? Linda asked as Naruto stepped forward and kissed her. We're better than okay, Naruto replied. I promise the next time something seems wrong I'll tell you. No secrets. Yeah, no secrets, Linda said as she seemed to think about something. Come on, let's head to that karaoke bar. Naruto was about to head out with Linda when he got a text. He saw it was from Barry. A police emergency. Sorry, I'm going to have to take a rain check. Looks like CSI is needed, Naruto said as he put his phone away and kissed her. Sorry, but I have to go. How about breakfast tomorrow? That's fine. Now, get going and catch some bad guys, Linda said as Naruto smiled at how understanding she was. I don't deserve you, Naruto replied. No, you really don't. Linda replied as she kissed him. Naruto went to get his jacket while Linda left. As she left, the lights in the hallway flickered a bit as Shizune looked confused. She flicked the light switch on and off and the lights seemed fine. Weird, she said as she got back to the laundry. Naruto super sped to the CSI lab where Barry grabbed his equipment. Hey, Naruto, here, take this one. Barry said as Naruto grabbed the briefcase. Sorry for the late call, but crime doesn't exactly take the night off. No problem. Although I'm going to have to make sure that breakfast tomorrow is amazing. Naruto said. Why's that? Barry asked. Well, when you texted, Linda and I were going to go out. She let me reschedule and I love her for it, but I'll have to make sure that breakfast tomorrow is amazing to make up for that. Naruto said as Barry nodded. Sorry. Barry replied as he grabbed the last of his equipment. So, you and Linda getting kind of serious? Yeah, I guess we are. I mean, she's great. She's funny, smart, witty, not afraid to speak her mind, and she's already won Tsunade and Shizune's approval, which says something. Naruto said as Barry could tell that Naruto really liked Linda. Barry didn't know Linda that well, but from their brief encounters, she was really nice and witty. Kind of serious that, I'm thinking of telling her about me. And by that you mean about what you can really do? Barry asked. Yeah, I'm sick of lying to her about who I really am. It put some tension on our relationship last month because of what happened with the reverse flash, and I couldn't exactly tell her what was wrong. Naruto said as Barry nodded. And I trust her. I think she should know. Well, if you trust her, that's good enough for me. You should ask the rest of the team later. For now, we've got a job to do. Barry said as they super sped to the location of the crime, which happened to be a custom warehouse. The truck entrance to the warehouse was literally smashed open. Barry and Naruto got on the scene as Joe walked up to them. Hey guys, here's what we got. The silent alarm of the warehouse went off for obvious reasons. We're thinking a robbery, Joe said as Barry nodded. All right, we'll get started. Naruto, start with getting any kind of evidence off of the door. Barry said as Naruto nodded. On it, Naruto said as he walked over to the broken door, put his gloves on and began getting to work. How's he doing? Joe asked as Barry looked at Naruto. Naruto's got another option for a career if he wants one. Barry said as Joe nodded. Barry got to work on the shattered door remains that littered the floor as one of the patrol officers came by after speaking with the warehouse supervisor. Are you sure nothing's missing? Joe asked. That's what the supervisor said. Every single car is accounted for. I can check again, the officer said as he went to speak to the supervisor as Eddie walked over. Barry looked at the shattered remains of the door and tested a few pieces as Joe and Eddie walked over. Bar, Joe said as Barry looked up. Hey, well, the breakage and pattern of the remains indicates that the door somehow had zero viscoelasticity when it hit the ground. Barry told them. What does that mean to normal people? Joe asked, confused. It shattered like glass. They heard as Naruto walked over with some bagged evidence. I checked out the door and the discolored areas have the same tensile durability as the shattered remains. But the rest of the door seems to be normal. So, what does that mean? Eddie asked. It means that whatever did this affected a small part of the garage enough for a car to break through. I bagged some evidence, so we can get a read on what did this. Naruto said as he put it in the briefcase. Naruto, can you break off a piece from the door? Barry said as Naruto nodded. Naruto walked over and broke off a small piece of the shattered door and it snapped off like it was made of glass. Naruto tossed it to Barry, who looked at it, curious as to what could have made steel break so easy. He took off his glove and touched it even though he wasn't supposed to, but it was a gut feeling. He touched the piece and it was cold, ice cold. It was frozen. Joe. Snart. Joe said as Barry nodded. He's back. Barry replied. I thought Snart was some world-class thief. All these expensive cars, he didn't take any of them. It doesn't make sense. Eddie said. Eddie, put out an APB on Snart. Joe told him. Got it. Eddie said as he left to call it in. Snart wasn't here to steal anything. Barry said as Joe nodded. He was setting a trap. Joe replied. For us. And by us, I mean, yeah, I know what you meant. Joe said, finishing his thought. Line break XXXXX. Barry and Naruto told Dr. Wells, Caitlin, and Cisco about Snart's return and that he was most likely here for another match with the Flash. Dr. Wells cautioned Barry about fighting with Snart because the last 2 times they fought, innocent people were put in harm's way. If they did engage Snart, the same thing was likely to happen for Snart to even the odds, but if they didn't he might back off. Dr. Wells, Cisco, and Naruto would develop something for the police to counteract Snart's cold gun, but the decision was ultimately up to them. Naruto arrived at Star Labs early the next day after breakfast with Linda to work on the countermeasure for Snart's cold gun. He arrived in the Cortex and saw only Dr. Wells. Hey, Dr. Wells, Naruto said. Morning, Naruto, Dr. Wells said as he sipped his coffee. I've got an idea about how we can keep the police safe from Snart's cold gun. What if we take the police's riot shield and lay out a ceramic heating ribbon to withstand and melt ice? Naruto said as Dr. Wells smiled. Great minds think alike, as I had the same revelation last night. We can incorporate a special nanoweave fiber to make the shield's light while maintaining the atomic structure of the ceramic heating ribbon. Dr. Wells said as he moved to a computer. Where's Barry? He's at work. I'm going to meet with him later once we drop off the new shields. Naruto said as he thought for a moment. Do you really think Snart will just back up if we don't get involved? Most likely. Someone like Snart is driven. From the brief glances I took at his police and psychological profile, going after you may not be a simple matter of keeping you from interfering in future heists of his, but as a way of settling a grudge. Snart is cunning and calculated, and he's fought both of you before. He'll have contingencies for his plan that most likely puts you and Barry at a disadvantage. If you don't engage him, then he might just walk away. Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. The choice is ultimately up to you, but if you go into this fight, you must be careful. Always, Dr. Wells, Naruto said as they moved to the workshop. There's also something else. What is it? Dr. Wells asked. It's about what we do and the secret we don't tell everyone. I want to tell Linda about who I am and what I can do. Naruto said as Dr. Wells stopped and looked at him. And by this I assume you mean about you being a meta-human and what we do here at Star Labs. Dr. Wells asked as Naruto nodded. Yeah, look, I understand that this is a secret that no one should know about, but I trust her. And if I want to have a chance at something real with her, then I need to tell her the truth. Naruto said as Dr. Wells sighed. And the fact that you're telling me about his means that you want to know the group's decision before you tell Ems Park. Dr. Wells asked as Naruto nodded. Yeah, Joe already knows, and Tsunade and Shizune as well, and it's worked out for us. I really see myself having something with Linda, and I can't move forward with her if I don't tell her who I really am. Naruto said as Dr. Wells nodded. And I understand that, Naruto. Do what you feel is best. Dr. Wells said as he moved over to a computer. That's it. I was expecting more of a fight. Naruto said. Perhaps it's the old romantic in me, but if I was in your situation with Tess, then I would do what I felt was best to be with her. Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. Thank you, Dr. Wells. But I'm not sure if Linda and I have the same thing that you and Tess did. At the moment, anyway. Naruto said as Dr. Wells smiled at him. Give it time. Something tells me that Naruto Namikaze and Linda Park have a bright future together. Dr. Wells said as Naruto smiled, and they got to work. They got to work on the ice countermeasures for the police as Cisco joined them, and they had a prototype set for testing, and once it passed the test, they'd make several for the police. Naruto went to the Cortex to get some extra ceramic wires for the shields and saw Caitlin sitting at the computer, diligently searching for something. Hey, Naruto said as she gasped, caught off guard. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. No, it's okay. I was just kind of focused. Caitlin said as Naruto nodded and looked at what she was searching, and it was the word firestorm. Firestorm? Naruto asked. It's one of the last things Ronnie said to me before he flew away. My dead fiancé can fly. I haven't broken that to my parents yet. Caitlin said as Naruto thought for a moment. Firestorm. Where have I heard that before? Naruto asked himself. You've heard it before? Caitlin asked. Yeah. Where did I hear it? Back in a sec. Naruto said as he super sped out of the lab and went to his room in the shelter. He began speeding around the room looking for anything to do with Firestorm when he found all his old binders and notes from his classes with Professor Stein. He opened one from his sophomore year and in his folder was a printout of an academic paper Professor Stein gave Naruto to read for extra credit, Project FIRESTORM. That's it. Naruto super sped back to the cortex and saw Barry talking to Caitlin. He stopped in a whoosh of air that blew Caitlin's hair all over the place. Sorry. Here, this is Firestorm. Naruto said as he showed her the paper. Fusion Ignition Research Experiment and Science of Transmutation Originating RNA and Molecular Structures. Caitlin said as she read the cover. Wow, that's a mouthful. Barry said as Caitlin looked it over. It's over 800 pages. Where did you get this? Caitlin asked. From one of my theoretical physics classes at college. I was doing very well, and the professor gave me this to read for extra credit. I'll save you the stress of having to read it, but basically the paper is about the idea of transmutation. It's the process of altering the structure of an element by unzipping the atoms with nuclear energy and rebuilding it to create an entirely new element. Naruto told her. Wow, what could this have to do with Ronnie? Caitlin asked as Naruto thought back to when Ronnie saved him and Barry from Reverse Flash with a fireball. Caitlin, is our suit data still in the computer? Naruto asked as Caitlin nodded, so Naruto went searching for that night's data. What are you doing? Barry asked as Naruto brought up the data and the scans from their suits showed increased levels of nuclear radiation. Whoa, what caused those radiation levels to go up? Ronnie. One of the points of the paper was manipulating nuclear energy to transmutate elements, and I think that the fireball Ronnie used to save us was actually transmutating nuclear energy into the form of fire. Naruto told them. A nuclear fireball, Barry said. Pretty much. Whatever happened to Ronnie, it looks like he somehow became Firestorm. Naruto said. Then how do we help them? Can we talk to the person who published this paper? Professor Martin Stein. Caitlin asked. That's probably not going to happen. Professor Stein went missing the night the accelerator went off. He's most likely dead, Naruto said as they had a moment of silence. But the paper was co-written by Jason Rush, one of Professor Stein's grad students. He might be able to help. Thanks, Naruto, Caitlin said as she began looking for a way to contact Jason Rush. Naruto went back to working on the shields for the police and the prototype passed the test, so they began making more. Once they finished, they went to the police station to demonstrate them to Captain Singh and the other officers. They set up a test dummy in the main atrium in the police station as Captain Singh and the other officers were standing around to watch. Dr. Wells was there as well as Naruto and Cisco with a makeshift freezing gun tank on his back. Excuse me. Can I have everyone's attention? Cisco shouted. You have our attention, Mr. Ramon. Captain Singh said. Naruto shook his head and chuckled. Focus, Cisco, Naruto told him as Cisco nodded. Right. Now, Dr. Wells, Naruto, and I took your ballistic shields and we lined them with a pretty sweet compacted heating ribbon designed to repel temperature attacks, especially those reaching absolute zero, like Captain Cold's gun. Cisco told them. And that's supposed to keep us from turning into popsicles? One of the officers asked. That's what he just said. Naruto said. How are we supposed to trust anything from Star Labs after you nuke the city? One of the officers asked as Cisco, Naruto, and Dr. Wells shared a look. You're right. You're right. You shouldn't trust us. What happened a year ago, that was our fault. And we can't change the past, as much as we wish we could. But tomorrow is a different story, a different thing. We just want the chance to make things better. Observe, Cisco said as he put on his safety goggles and fired his ice gun at the shield. The force pushed the dummy back a bit as ice began to form on the shield, but once Cisco stopped firing, the ice began melting. Nearby officers walked over to check it out and were impressed. Dummies are one thing. My officers are another. Captain Singh said to Cisco. Nicely done, Cisco. Naruto said to him. He doesn't seem to think so. Cisco said, referring to Captain Singh. Let it be. Singh is like that, Naruto said as he went to get the other shields for the police. At a private air hangar in Central City, a jet landed with the Rathaways. One of Central City's richest couple who returned from France with a painting they bought at auction for $25 million. The flight landed as the crew and the workers helped the Rathaways. Pleasant flight, Mrs. Rathaway. One of their servants asked as he helped her out of the plane. Yes. Thank you, she replied as Mr. Rathaway walked out of the plane with the painting. Careful, please. It's worth a fortune, Mr. Rathaway said. Welcome home, Mr. Rathaway. The servant said. Thank you, Ethan, Mr. Rathaway replied as they walked to their car. Sir, you son Hartley, he called again. Ethan said. We don't have a son anymore, Mr. Rathaway replied. One of the security guards opened the car door but was then blasted by a blue beam and frozen. The other guards went to protect the Rathaways as Snart walked into the hangar. Someone better call 911. Snart shouted. He aimed his gun at them and they backed away. Lovely painting. Thank you so much for picking it up for me. I hate flying. He then shot a blast near them to frighten them as they backed away. You won't get away with this. The police are on their way, Mr. Rathaway shouted. Perfect, Snart said as he fired another blast in the air. Now go. They ran for their lives as Snart heard the police closing in. He double-checked his gun as police cruisers swerved to a stop in front of the hangar. Joe, Eddie, a whole bunch of other officers armed with the new anti-cold shields ran forward. Snart, freeze, Joe shouted as Snart fired his gun and the ice blast hit their shields, but instead of freezing and cracking, the ice melted away and the officers were safe. He fired another blast as the ice melted, but the impact from the blast kept the police back. Snart realized this wasn't working, so it was time for Plan B. Mick, Snart shouted. Gah, Mick shouted as he came from behind a plane. What the hell? Joe shouted. Why do they call you people the Heat? I'm the Heat, Mick shouted as he fired his fire gun and huge torrent of fire hit the police shields and forced them back. A few officers were hit by the fire and were taken away, but the intense heat of the flames made all the officers back off for risk of being burned alive. The shields kept them alive, but it wasn't designed to repel such intense heat, so it quickly began to heat up and burned the officers who held them. Forget the cops, Mick. Get ready for them, Snart shouted as he fired his cold gun to keep the officers away. It's beautiful, Mick shouted as he was engrossed by the flames and heat his gun displayed. Mick, Snart shouted to get his friend back on task when Joe blindly fired his gun and a bullet managed to hit Mick's heat gun. We go, now, Snart shouted as he fired his ice gun and they made their escape. Line break XXXXX. Snart and Mick got away and returned to their hideout while the police licked their wounds and tended to the people who were seriously hurt. Mick was at his workstation, fixing his gun. The cop's bullet ruptured the secondary internal fuel chamber. It could have been worse, Mick said as he put the tool down and picked his gun up. You were right to get me to learn every part and circuit of this thing. Repairing it was a snap. Mick turned around and pointed his gun at Snart, who had his gun pointed at him. Give me one good reason I don't kill you right now, Snart said. It's going to be hard to find someone else to listen to your winning speeches. Mick replied. You lost it out there, just like the last job. You lost focus, became obsessed. Snart said. I'm obsessed. What about you? You're usually counting the seconds, got the whole thing planned out, dotting T's, crossing I's. But all you care about now is those two speedsters, Mick told him. We need to put them down, Mick, Snart told him. Why? We got the finger painting. It's worth millions. It's ours. We're rich, job done, Mick replied. And what about the next job, Mick? And the job after that? With weapons like these, no one can stand against us, no one except the Flash and Impulse, Snart said as he lowered his gun. If you want out, take the painting and go. But if you want to make Central City our home, where we can do and take whatever we want, this is our chance, your chance. Mick thought as he fired his gun at the painting and burnt it to a crisp. Very motivational. How do we get them? The speedsters aren't so different from us. They've got partners too. Snart said as he had a plan. Naruto arrived at Star Labs the next day after they saw what Snart and his accomplice was able to do, using some kind of high-tech flamethrower that put some of the police in the hospital. He walked into the cortex and saw Cisco, Barry, and Dr. Wells at the computer. Naruto, perfect timing. Check this out, Cisco said as he brought up an image of the flamethrower Snart's partner used. When the heat gun was fired, it increased the surrounding temperature of the air dramatically, sort of like an extreme heat wave. Cisco said as he then smiled. Heat wave. Stop doing that, Dr. Wells told him. Okay, I measured the temperature output of both the cold and heat guns, right? And while the cold gun achieves absolute zero, the heat gun successfully reaches absolute hot, or the hottest temperature an object can reach. Cisco said. Planck temperature. Barry said. So potentially, these two guns could cancel each other out. Dr. Wells said. Yeah, but to do that, you'd have to make them cross streams. Cisco said. Like Ghostbusters? Barry asked. That film is surprisingly scientifically accurate. Cisco said. And really quite funny. Dr. Wells added. This is good, Cisco. An excellent plan B, Naruto said. Plan B. Why not a plan A? Cisco asked. Well, plan A would be to grab their guns before they could even use them. I mean, Barry and I now max out at Mach 1.4, fast enough that Snart and his partner wouldn't be able to see us before they could fire their weapons. Naruto said as he felt his phone vibrating. You think they'll give you the chance? Snart is clever and knows that he'll try and keep you distracted. Dr. Wells said. That's why I said it's a good plan B. Naruto said with a smirk as he saw it was Joe. Hey, Joe, what's up? What? Yeah, Barry and I will be there immediately. What's wrong? Dr. Wells asked. It's Caitlin. Snart has her. Naruto said as they all shared looks of dread as Naruto and Barry super sped to the accident site. Naruto and Barry arrived and saw police tape and several police cars and officers set up near Caitlin's car that was covered in ice. Naruto and Barry walked up to the scene as Joe finished talking with an officer. Naruto ran his hands through his hair and began freaking out as Snart now had Caitlin and was doing God knows what to her. Joe, anything? Barry asked. There's no sign of Caitlin. Joe said as Naruto exhaled in frustration. Son of a bitch. Naruto shouted as he ran over and kicked the fence as Joe and Barry ran over and calmed him down. Easy, Naruto. Don't worry, we're getting her back. Barry said. Damn right we are. Let's go, Joe said as they for the police station. They exited the elevator as Eddie walked down the stairs with a file. Joe, got an id on the second pair of prints. They belong to a Mick Rory. Eddie told them as Joe looked over the file. Who the hell is he? Barry asked. Big-time arsonist. He and Snart have been known associates of each other for years. Last year they worked a job that went bad. Half of Rory's body was burned in a fire that got out of control. He escaped from an ambulance on the way to the hospital, hasn't been seen since. Why would they kidnap someone like Caitlin? Eddie asked. Joe, Thon, it's on every station. Captain Singh said as he turned the TV volume up to show camera footage of Snart and Caitlin being held by Rory. Caitlin, Naruto said, seeing her held captive. Greetings, citizens of Central City. I am Leonard Snart, but you can call me Cold. I'm gonna make this very simple for everyone. Those red and orange streaks you've been hearing whispers about, the ones mysteriously saving people these past few months. Well, surprise. They are real. The Flash, and his little sidekick Impulse. Porter and Maine, tonight, sundown. Come out, wherever you are, Flash. Show the whole world you're real. Or this woman dies. Snart said. No, don't come for me. Stay away, Caitlin shouted as the video feed cut. Okay, everyone, I want tactical units and patrol cars ready at Porter and Maine, and I want that area clear of civilians in 2 hours. It's 5 until sundown, let's get ready. Captain Singh said as everyone got to work. That son of a bitch is gonna regret coming back to Central City. Naruto said as he and Barry left for Star Labs. Mick had taken Caitlin and tied her to a chair while Snart got ready for their fight with the Flash and Impulse. You're a friend to these guys. They're fast, like fire. Mick said as he took out and lit his lighter. Fire, it's undefinable. Heat, light, energy. It's an evolution when things burn. You're sick, Caitlin said to him. Maybe you're the sick ones. You ever think about that? Mick asked. Not really, Caitlin said as she looked at his burns. You have third-degree burns. Why didn't you get skin grafts? The fire revealed my true self, showed me who I really am. I wonder what your speedster friends will reveal when I burn their suits and skin off. Mick said. Do whatever you want to me but leave them alone. Caitlin warned him as Mick was amused. You and these guys must be really close if you're willing to die for him. You want me to show you who you really are? That'd be fun. Show you who you really are. Mick said as he held his flamethrower to Caitlin's face. Mick, Snart said, getting him to stop. Time to go. Mick then turned the switch on a device and grabbed a fishing wire. You better pray that the next people that come through that door is us. He said as he put a gag in her mouth and left. Back at Star Labs, Naruto was at the computer while Barry was pacing back and forth. Please stop that, you're distracting me. Naruto said as he tried to stay focused. Sorry. Anything yet? Barry asked as Naruto nodded and motioned him to come over. From Caitlin's car, I managed to piece together surveillance footage of Snart and Rory that leads to a 2-square-mile area near the industrial sector. Naruto said as Barry looked over the information. That's a lot of ground to cover. Barry said as Naruto nodded. I know, but I think Mick Rory will want to have it hot. Naruto said as he brought up thermographic imaging from the Star Labs satellite as it began running scans of the area, which would take a few minutes. Barry then got a call from Joe telling him that it was time. It's time, Barry said as Naruto nodded. Go and just keep them occupied, I'll come when Caitlin's safe. Naruto told him as Barry nodded and got suited up as Naruto stayed at the computer until it finished the search. He then got a ping on an old pipe warehouse and the heat signature there was 3 times intense than any of the other buildings in the area. I'm coming, Caitlin. Naruto grabbed his suit and ran through the city in a blur of orange and white lightning and arrived at the warehouse as Joe and Cisco pulled up in Joe's car. You sure this is the place? Joe asked. I checked the CCTV footage and satellite images. Unless this place is suddenly back into production, this is it. Naruto said as Joe nodded and pulled out his gun. Stay close, Joe told Cisco as Naruto opened up the loading bay door and they walked in. Caitlin, Cisco called out as they heard a muffle. Caitlin, is that you? Cisco walked forward and saw Caitlin tied to a chair with a gag in her mouth. Caitlin, don't worry. We're gonna get you out of there. Cisco said as he walked forward when Naruto saw the gleam of a metal wire. Cisco, wait, Naruto shouted as Cisco tripped the tripwire and pulled the pin on a grenade. Naruto ran forward and pulled Cisco back and then quickly ran forward and grabbed Caitlin from the spot and covered her just as the grenade exploded in a huge plume of fire. Caitlin, you okay? She nodded as Naruto pulled her the gag off and hugged her close. Nice moving there, Naruto. Caitlin said as Cisco and Joe came over and helped her up. We'll get her to CCPD. Joe said as Naruto nodded. All right, it's time Snart's little vendetta ends. Naruto said as he super sped away and through the city to the fight. The Flash was doing his best to keep Snart and Rory occupied like Naruto said to until they could find Caitlin and make sure she was safe. Dr. Wells told him to try and get them to cross their guns, but it was a lot harder than that as Snart was doing his best to keep the Flash at a distance and Rory backed him up. The Flash ran up the side of a building as Snart and Mick fired at him with their guns while Captain Singh and Eddie watched the fight as Iris had arrived to make sure Eddie was okay. The fight is spreading past the evac point. We need to expand the perimeter. Captain Singh shouted as Eddie walked up to him. We can't let this spread. Eddie said as he grabbed one of the Star Labs riot shields and was about to help the Flash when a whoosh of air blew past him in a trail of orange and white lightning. Impulse. Captain Singh said as they saw Impulse join the fight. Hey! Rory heard as he turned and was greeted with a super speed fist to the face that sent him off his feet, flying through the air and into a car. Impulse hit him with enough force that the metal of the car bent from the impact as Rory was knocked unconscious. Snart saw Impulse and aimed his gun as the Flash ran by, swiped his gun, and punched him across the face. Impulse picked up the heat gun and vibrated his hand through it, breaking it in two while the Flash dismantled the ice gun. Not bad, boys. I guess you win this time. Snart said. There won't be a next time. Flash said as Impulse then kicked him across the face and knocked him out. That's for Caitlin, Impulse said as he looked at the Flash and nodded. He looked up and saw the news helicopter circling above with the spotlight shined on them along with the horde of news cameras at the police perimeter. Let's get out of here. Race you. Flash said as the two super sped out of the area leaving the police to arrest Snart and Rory. Barry and Naruto got dressed back in their civilian clothes and arrived at the CCPD as the officers brought in Snart and Rory for processing. Snart was cool and calm while Rory was struggling and trying to get free. Burn. All of you. I'll roast every last one of you pigs. Rah! Rory shouted as he was dragged away with Snart behind him. Your partner's a real hothead, Snart. Joe told him. That's funny. Snart replied. You know what's hilarious, Snart? We got you. Joe said. Congratulations. Snart replied. Get him out of here. Joe said as the officers took him away and Eddie walked up to Naruto holding the two guns Snart and Rory used. Here, we won't be needing these for the trial. Eddie told him as Naruto nodded and put them in a tub. They won't be hurting anyone again. Naruto said as Eddie nodded and walked away. Naruto. Naruto heard as he turned to see Captain Singh holding his hand out. Thank you and thank your Star Labs friends for us. Yes, sir. Naruto replied as he shook his hand with a smile. Naruto took the tub of guns as the cops began talking about the Flash and how great he was, which made Barry smile. What? I took out Rory. I don't get any praise. Maybe next time, sidekick. Barry joked. I'm getting a publicist. Naruto said, causing Barry to laugh. Line break XXXXX. The guns were destroyed and any kind of link, blueprint, or piece of information of how they could be made was erased from the Star Labs servers. Snart and Rory were then shipped out to Iron Heights for life sentences and things were looking good in Central City. It was only a day after they put Snart and Rory away that Naruto learned Team Arrow in Starling City needed help. Naruto was working on part of the reactor ring at Star Labs while Dr. Wells was busy doing something. Cisco and Caitlin were elsewhere and Barry was at the CCPD. Naruto adjusted some measurements when his tablet began showing breaking news from Starling about the recent murders of two Starling City aldermen and the rescue attempt failed by Arsenal and a woman in black suit and a blonde wig, but Naruto noticed the arrow was nowhere to be seen. 1. What the hell? Naruto asked as he took out his phone to call Oliver but didn't get anything. Naruto called again but got nothing, so he called Felicity. Hello. Felicity answered. Felicity, it's Naruto. I saw what happened on the news. Is everyone okay? Naruto asked. I think so. To be honest, I haven't been in the bunker in a few days. Felicity said as Naruto could tell something was wrong. Felicity, what's wrong? Naruto asked. Naruto, Oliver's dead. Felicity said as Naruto was shocked. What? Naruto asked. He went to fight the head of the League of Assassins to save his sister and he didn't make it. I can't talk right now, I need to go. Felicity said as she hung up. Naruto was frozen in shock as Oliver was dead, he seemed unkillable. Naruto looked at the news and the reporter went on to elaborate that this attack was because of a local gang leader named Daniel Brickwell. Naruto watched the news and set his mind to what he felt he had to do. Naruto walked into the cortex, grabbed a spare bag from the cabinet and filled it up with several high-energy calorie bars and grabbed his suit off of the mannequin. And where do you think you're going? Naruto heard as he turned to see Dr. Wells. Starling City. Naruto said as he put his boots in the bag. Off for another unscheduled trip with the Starling City vigilante? Dr. Wells asked. No, he's dead. Naruto said as Dr. Wells froze. Oh, Dr. Wells said. But Felicity and his team need help. And I'm going to help them. Naruto said as he put the rest of his suit in the bag and zipped it up. Don't try to talk me out of this. I made up my mind. I know, and I know better than to stop you, especially when I literally can't. Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. Tell Barry and the others I'll be back as soon as I can. Naruto said as he slung the pack of his shoulder. And if Linda should call? Dr. Wells asked. Tell her it was an emergency. I'll explain this and everything to her when I get back. Naruto said as he walked to the door. Naruto. Dr. Wells said as he stopped and turned. Be careful. As careful as anyone can be. Naruto said as he super sped out of Central City to Starling City, 600 miles away. In Starling City, Roy and Diggle were in the bunker after the failed rescue of the alderman, contemplating their next move and if they could protect the city without Oliver. Roy was brooding at the table while Diggle walked over to Oliver's chest and took out the bottle of Russian vodka and 2 glasses. That alderman died because of the decision I made. And there was no Mirakuru to blame this time. Roy said as Diggle walked over. Don't take that on yourself, man. That was Brick, Dick said as he poured 2 glasses of vodka. What's that? Roy asked. Sometimes, me and Oliver will come down here after, you know, tough nights. He would pour this. Look up and say, Prognost. Dick said as he and Roy took their glasses. What does that mean? Roy asked. I have no earthly idea. Dick said as Roy chuckled. To Oliver. To Oliver. Roy said as they cheers and took a sip. I think the word means strength. They heard as they turned to see Naruto walk in with a bag slung over his shoulder. Probably a rough translation but something along those lines. Naruto, what are you doing here? Dick asked. I saw what happened on the news and Felicity told me what happened. I'm sorry about Oliver. Naruto said as he put his bag on a table. He grabbed a clean glass, poured himself a full glass of vodka and downed it all like it was water, which surprised Dig and Roy. We honor the dead by living tomorrow. Who said that? Roy asked as Naruto grimaced at the memory. My godfather. Oliver may be dead but the city he cares about isn't. He trusted it to you and you owe it to him to keep fighting, no matter the hurdles or obstacles. And I'm here to help. Naruto said as Dig and Roy smiled. And good thing you came when you did. They heard Felicity say as she and someone Naruto didn't know walk in. Who's this? The woman asked. Naruto Namikaze, from Central City. Meta-human with super speed, goes by Impulse. This is Laurel Lance, Ada for the city, also goes by Black Canary. Felicity said as Naruto nodded. Right. So, why are you glad I came when I did? Naruto asked. I talked to my father. He said the mayor is going to cave and cede control over the glades. They're going to evacuate the police force. Laurel said. So, it's up to us to stop Brick. Felicity said. Us? What are you and Laurel a team now? Roy asked. I was wrong when I said Oliver's mission was over. Naruto's right. It's not just his mission anymore, it's ours. It is our home under attack. Felicity said. For all we know, Oliver could be dead and Sarah certainly is. But there are people that are still alive. People who need us. Laurel said as Dig nodded. Okay. First we have to find out where those aldermen are. Dig said. How do we do that? Roy asked as Naruto looked at the computer setup. Do you mind? Naruto asked as Felicity nodded. Naruto sat in the chair and began opening and reading every single file possible on the 2 aldermen that were taken. To Dig and everyone else it looked like Naruto was opening and closing files every second, but Naruto was reading every single piece of information, trying to find a lead. How is he doing that? Laurel asked. Naruto's a speedster. Felicity said as Laurel looked at him. You know, the mysterious blurs in Central City. The Flash and Impulse. His mind works faster than a supercomputer. What takes us days, can take him hours. Felicity said as Naruto kept moving through all the information when he stopped on an old medical file on one of the aldermen. Got it. One of the aldermen has a pacemaker. It requires a recharge and it's remote programmable. Naruto said as he got up and Felicity took his place. I can lock onto the pacemaker's GPS, it'll take a few minutes. Felicity said as she got to work. Gear up, Roy said as he and Laurel put on their suits. Roy put on his gear and loaded his quiver with arrows while Laurel put on her black canary suit and wig. She decided not to use the bow staff and instead chose a tonfa stick. She put it around her waist and grabbed her sonic scream device. What is this? Naruto asked as Laurel handed it to him. My sister's sonic scream device. It's pretty handy, Laurel said as Naruto looked it over. I bet. But I think this thing could do with an upgrade, Naruto said as he handed it back to her. I got it. They're at an abandoned customs warehouse, Felicity said as Naruto walked over and got the address. Got it, Naruto said as he opened his bag in a blur of orange and white lightning, was dressed. Whoa, Laurel said. Still not used to that, Dick said as Naruto loaded the address to his goggles. Naruto, I've opened up a link to your goggles. Everything you see, we see, Felicity said as Naruto nodded. Roger that, Naruto said as he grabbed Laurel and Roy. All right, hold on and don't puke. Naruto super sped through the city, carrying Roy and Laurel until they arrived inside the warehouse on the 3rd floor. Roy and Laurel staggered a bit from the sudden movement as it made them feel nauseous, but it quickly passed. Breathe through the nose, Impulse told them as he switched his goggles to thermal mode. Okay, guys. From Impulse's goggles, there are 15 bad guys in the warehouse, Brick include. The aldermen are located on the 2nd floor in a storage room, and based on the scans I'm getting, there's a bomb near them, Felicity told them over the comms. Brick certainly didn't take any chances, Arsenal said. If I get a look at the device I can talk Impulse through deactivating it, Felicity said. Just be careful. There are 14 guys in there armed with guns. It's going to be close quarters in there, Dig said. Don't worry about the guns. I can handle that, Impulse said. Let's go, Black Canary said as they moved to the 2nd floor. Canary kicked a thug down the stairs and followed it up by slamming him in the head with her tonfa as Arsenal and Impulse jumped over the staircase railing. Impulse blocked and parried a punch from a thug and punched him in the gut in response. He then kicked him away as Canary then hit him over the head. Arsenal smacked another bad guy with his bow as Impulse grabbed the thug's arm, threw him over his shoulder and knocked him out with a punch to the face. Arsenal kicked a bad guy to Impulse, who grabbed him and threw him into a wall and punched him across the face. He then grabbed a baseball bat that a thug tried to hit him with, disarmed him and hit him in the gut and then across the head, knocking him out. Canary tackled one of the goons, but he threw her up against wall and punched her across the face, so Impulse tackled him through the adjacent crumbling wall and knocked him out with a right cross. He got up and moved into the room as he dodged a punch from another thug and slammed him into a shelf. The thug kept trying to punch him, but Impulse kept dodging, grabbed the guy's arm, kneed him in the gut and smashed his face into the ground. Arsenal took out another 2 guys as Black Canary took out her one when 3 more guys showed up with guns and fired at them, but Impulse grabbed the bullets out of the air, saving them. He then charged forward and speed tackled the 3, sending them flying across the room. Arsenal and Black Canary looked at Impulse, who smirked as he opened his hands, dropping 29mm bullets to the ground. You should come here more often, Arsenal said as they kept moving. Follow the hallway 20 yards. Turn left, Felicity told them as they saw a goon watching over the 2 aldermen who were tied up in chairs with a C4 bomb strapped to the chairs. Alderman, Black Canary shouted as she knocked out the goon with a swing of her tonfa. It's okay, we're gonna get you out of here. I see the bomb. It's a pretty rudimentary design, Felicity said as she looked up the schematics. Disconnect the blue and red wires from the timer. That'll render the bomb useless. Impulse pulled the 2 wires and the bomb shut off, now completely useless. Let's go, Arsenal said as he led them out of the room. Brick arrived and fired his pistol at them, cutting off Black Canary from the others. Go, get them out, Black Canary said. Canary, head to the south side window, I'll pick you up there, Impulse told her as she nodded and ran to the side as Impulse grabbed the 2 aldermen and raced them out of there into the SCPD. He raced back to grab Arsenal and brought him back to the bunker and then raced back to the warehouse. He saw Black Canary jump out a window, so Impulse ran up the side of the building, grabbed her mid-fall and raced back to the bunker, leaving Brick confused and with no alderman to use as leverage. At the SCPD, Captain Lance walked out into the alley because he got a call from Felicity who wanted to talk about the Brick situation. He stepped out and waited, looking for the guy in red or Sarah. "Dad," Lance heard as he turned to see Sarah standing at the top of a stairwell with a light directly behind her so he could only see her silhouette. Which was a good thing because it wasn't Sarah but Laurel. "Sarah. Oh, it's good to see you. Why didn't you call me or visit sooner, honey?" Lance asked. "Things have been complicated, but I don't want you to worry about me. I'm fine. And I'm here to help," Laurel told him, her voice disguised to sound like Sarah's. "Both aldermen are safe with their families." "Nice job. For all the good it did," Lance said. "What does that mean?" Laurel asked. "Mayor Castle caved. She's pulling SCPD out of the glades," Lance told her. "But why? Brick doesn't have the alderman anymore," Laurel said. "No, but what he does have is the home address of every city council member and their family, and the means to hurt them. Played that card 15 minutes ago. From now on, all SCPD are ordered to stay out of the glades and if we encounter any of Brick's men, we leave them be," Lance told her. "What can I do to stop him?" Laurel asked. "If you grab all the information that Brick has on the city leadership and you manage to take him down, it might make Mayor Castle think it's enough for us to move back in," Lance said as he could see Sarah nod and turn to leave. "Wait, sweetheart, how about we, cry over each other's shoulders? Over dinner, at the Chinese place you love." "I can't. I'm sorry," Laurel said as she turned to leave. "What's going on, sweetheart? Why are you trying to avoid me?" Lance asked. "I'll explain everything. Just, not tonight," Laurel said as she left. Laurel made her way back to the bunker and told everyone the news. The SCPD were out of the glades and they were on their own until they could take down Brick. "Well, it's us against an entire criminal organization. We've had better odds," Felicity said. "Until we can take out Brick, my father and the SCPD won't lift a finger to help," Laurel said as she took a deep breath. "Hey, you okay?" Naruto asked, seeing her shaken. "I'm fine. Thanks," Laurel replied with a smile. "We keep fighting and we'll figure out a way to take down Brick. It's what Oliver would do," Dig said. "Besides, you got a speedster on your side. Evens the odds a little bit," Naruto said as they smiled. Line break XXXXX. It had been 3 days since the SCPD had pulled out of the glades, leaving the citizens of the area under the control and torment of Brick and his army of gang members and goons. With Naruto, Dig and the others were able to keep the area safe and they kept taking out and tying up Brick's men, but the police would just let them go until Brick was arrested. And Naruto ran all over the glades twice to try and find him, and he must have gone into hiding or someplace Naruto couldn't find. But he and Team Arrow did their best to keep the glades safe and beat the crap out of all of Brick's men they came across. At a local diner, the TV was playing the local news, which was currently displaying a table debate about Mayor Castle's recent actions to pull the police out of the glades and conceding control to Brick. The glades have been without a police presence for 3 days now and the situation there is only getting worse. Daniel Brickwell threatened every member of local government. What else was Mayor Castle supposed to do? This is worse than negotiating with terrorists. Smash! The TV was destroyed by a baseball bat from one of Brick's goon who was at the diner to collect taxes. Everyone in the diner got behind the bar and cowered together. Tax time. Brick wants his cut. Now give me all the cash in the register, or I'll make your head look like that TV, he said as he slammed the bat onto the bar. I have another idea, Arsenal said as he stepped into the diner. Looks like we got ourselves a real live superhero here. You that red steak I've been hearing about on TV? He asked. Wrong city, Arsenal said. He ducked and spun to avoid the baseball bat and got behind him. He blocked the bat with his bow when another goon got up behind him and placed a shotgun at his head. Either way, I bet Brick will pay us a finder's fee. Make the call, he said as the other guy pulled out a walkie-talkie. Guns down, they heard as Black Canary entered the diner. She smacked the shotgun out of the gun's hands and slammed him in the face with her tonfa while Arsenal knocked back his opponent. He quickly took him out with a bow swing to the head as Black Canary took out her guy when she slammed his head onto the bar. Grant must be some teacher, Arsenal said, causing her to smile. He then placed his finger to his ear. Diner a 10th, clear. Felicity and Diggle were at the bunker, hearing the incoming calls the citizens of the Glades made to the police for help only for nothing to happen. Diner's taken care of. Why are these people calling 911? Don't they know the police have pulled out of the Glades? Felicity asked. Because they're desperate and scared, Dick said as he saw another crime show up on the computer. Break-in at 15th and 8th. On it, Impulse said over his comms as he super sped through the city to the address, grabbed the burglar and tied him up at a lamp post. Done. Give me another. There's a string of robberies along Jim Lee Boulevard, Felicity told him. On my way, Impulse said as he super sped away. Roy, Laurel, multiple reports of looting at Western and Oxnard. Dig told them. Got it. On our way, Arsenal said as he and Laurel threw the goons through the diner windows before leaving via Roy's motorcycle. Captain Lance was in his office at the SCPD, listening to all the calls coming in and couldn't take it, so he called Felicity. It's Lance, Felicity said. Good. Maybe he's got some good news, Dig said. Captain Lance? Felicity asked. You guys have been busy, Lance said. Just trying to keep things together. The good it does since these guys go free and we haven't been able to find Brick in hiding, Felicity said. How can I help? Lance asked. Can you? I thought the mayor was pretty specific about Blues staying out of the Glades, Felicity said. It doesn't mean I can't help out the Hood Squad off the books, Lance said. We call ourselves Team Arrow. Well, actually, that's just me, Felicity said. I just got everything we have on Brick from evidence lockup, Lance said, looking over the file. Okay, I'll send Arsenal over once the next brush fire's put out, Felicity told him. Arsenal? What, are you guys just pulling names out of a hat now? Lance asked. Felicity, you might want to wrap it up. We just got 3 more calls, Dig said. Talk soon, Captain, Felicity said as she hung up. Lance sat at his desk as he heard a call about a man in red, a woman in black leather, and even an orange blur rushing through the city. After hours of taking out bad guys and keeping people safe, things were finally quiet enough that Felicity sent Roy to pick up the file from Lance. The team was resting in the bunker after the long night as Naruto was stitching a new wound Laurel got on her arm. Laurel sat in a chair as Naruto made another incision with the needle and thread as Laurel tightened her fist. Easy. Last one, Naruto said as he finished the stitching and tied it close. You're a lot better at this than Roy, Laurel said as Naruto put a bandage on it. Takes a certain hand to do this right, Naruto said as he finished up and put the medical equipment away. Where did you learn to stitch? Roy asked. Tsunade, the woman who runs the group home I live at, was a doctor. When the kids got hurt, she had me help and she taught me how to stitch should something happen if she wasn't there, Naruto said as he put the first aid kit away and grabbed a high-calorie energy bar. Super fast superhero, scientist and an amateur doctor. What can't you do? Felicity asked. I can't sing. Trust me, it's not pretty, Naruto said as that managed to crack a small chuckle. Although after the past few days, that would seem like a welcome challenge. Thanks again for sticking around, Naruto, Dig said as Naruto nodded. More than happy to help. But the fat load of good it does. I can run around this city and tie up every bad guy the first see. It still won't do any good until Brick is dealt with, Naruto said. My father give us anything to use to locate Brick, Laurel asked as Dig and Felicity sighed in exhaustion. I don't see how. Some of this stuff goes back decades, Dig said. There is plenty of evidence against Brick, but there's nothing the police can make stick, Felicity said as she rubbed her eyes. The modern justice system at work, Naruto said. So, this is what Brick has reduced us to, grasping for straws, Laurel said as Felicity walked over to her computer. I don't know how you guys have done this for so long. We had Oliver. He had experience with this kind of thing, Roy said as Dig walked over to Felicity. What are you doing? he asked, grasping at straws. I'm pretty sure, but maybe there's something in Brick's MO that would suggest a couple doors for us to kick down. I mean, for you to kick down. Felicity said as the computer beeped. What was that? Laurel asked. Cross-reference with Alderman Ford's murder and the evidence your father gave us. Felicity said as she brought up the information that surprised them. The same gun was used in a 20-year-old shooting. The same gun. Either that's arrogance or stupidity. Roy said. With Brick it's a toss-up. Naruto said. In this case, definitely stupidity. The victim from 20 years ago, Felicity said as the data brought up the newspaper article on the murder of Rebecca Merlin. Rebecca Merlin. Daniel Brickwell killed Malcolm Merlin's wife. So, Brick killed Merlin's wife. What does that have to do with anything? Roy asked. It is just another reason for them to share bunk beds in hell. Not that I generally believe in hell, but for them, I will make an exception. Felicity said. Maybe we should get Merlin to solve our brick problem for us. Dig said. That's pretty dark. Laurel replied. Laurel, if you don't think things are dark, you haven't been paying attention. Dig said. I thought Merlin was dead after the earthquake nearly 3 years ago. Naruto asked as the four looked at him. Right. Naruto doesn't know. Long story short, Merlin faked his death and has been alive this whole time. Felicity said. If he's been alive, why come back to Starling City? Especially if he wants the world to think he's dead. I'm pretty sure being in the city he nearly destroyed isn't a good idea. Naruto said. And it's not, but he came here for one reason. Thea, Roy said as Naruto looked at him. It turns out Merlin is Thea's biological father. Whoa, wasn't expecting that. Naruto said. Merlin organized a whole conspiracy that sent Oliver to fight Ra's al Ghul, and he's the reason he's dead. Felicity said, her voice trembled a bit. Right. If I ever see this guy, I'll punch him in the face or super speed him into a nearby volcano. Naruto said. Probably be doing the world a favor with that. Dig said. Even if we did sick Malcolm Merlin on Brick, which I'm not saying we do, it won't do us any good. We've been trying for 3 days to find Brick and we've come up empty. I've searched the entire city 3 times, and unless there are secret bunkers I don't know about, Brick's gone Mia. Naruto said. Naruto's right. Brick's men have been busy. They're cutting down cell towers and disconnecting traffic cams and staying out of satellite line of sight, like basically every way I know how to find somebody. Felicity said. Brick's here in the Glades. He has to be. He wouldn't have gone through all of this just to leave, he'll want to be right in the middle of it. Dig said. If the cell towers are down, how's Brick's crew communicating? Roy asked as Laurel remembered something. At the diner, his men they were using walkies. Roy said as he remembered as well. Felicity walked over to the computer as Laurel joined her. Do you think that you could, I don't know, use those signals to locate Brick? Laurel asked. You haven't been down here that much. Felicity said as she began running calculations. If they're communicating via radio, they'll be on the FRS, somewhere between 462 and 467 MHz. If I send out a frequency burst, I should be able to triangulate their location. I did not understand one word you said, but Oliver was certainly lucky to have you. Laurel told her as Felicity's calculations brought up the location. 114 Grandview Plaza. Dig said. Felicity, that's the Glades precinct. Laurel said. Well, it's not like the police are using it. Roy said. I checked that place and I didn't see Brick at all. Naruto said as Felicity did a little digging. And I think I know why. Felicity said as she brought up a geographic view of the precinct and old newspapers articles from the 20s. Back during Prohibition, the Glades precinct used to be a famous bar and had a secret tunnel that led to a hotel a few blocks away. During the 50s the bar was then turned into the precinct. I guess Brick must have found the tunnel. Dig said. Let's gear up. Roy said as he, Laurel, and Naruto got changed. At the precinct, Brick ordered his men to gather up all the evidence from the evidence room, so they could use to free more men and to get rid of existing charges and raid the armory. Brick was sitting in his office near the secret tunnel, talking to the 2 goons who messed up getting the money from the diner. So, why don't you explain it to me, boys? Brick asked. They got the drop on us, boss. He said. No, I mean where you had the red one in front of your shotgun and he's still not dead. And that loss of revenue is costing me money. Brick said as he slammed his pistol onto the table. And it wasn't even this blur I've been hearing about. It was those two stupid idiots in red and black. Should have been easy kills. Brick adjusting his tie and put the pistol on the table. Now you know the deal, boys. You take me down first, you walk out alive. Brick told them as the two men looked at each other. One reached for the gun, but Brick got to it first and shot him in the heart. Brick then aimed his gun at the other guy's head when the power went out. Felicity managed to cut the power to the building and was going to give Arsenal, Black Canary, and Impulse help and a bird's eye view. Okay, the power's out. Felicity said. There's ventilation shaft 40 feet north of your current position. It should drop you off in the east wing. There are only 2 sentries there now. Dig told them. Got it. Arsenal said as he and Black Canary entered through there. Impulse watched from across the street as he switched to thermal and saw half of Brick's men begin doing patrols while the other were moving boxes and guns. Felicity, I see a lot of Brick's men moving boxes from the first floor west area. Impulse told her. Checking. That would be evidence lockup room. It looks like Brick is trying to get rid of more evidence to free more men. Felicity said. Naruto, you've got to get that evidence and bring it back here. The more we save, the harder we make it on Brick. Dig told him. On it. Impulse said as he super sped into the building and shoulder tackled one goon away from the evidence room and slammed him into a wall. The rest of Brick's men saw him and opened fire, but Impulse super sped out of the way, avoiding the hail of bullets. He super sped back and swiped all their weapons. He ran by again and knocked them all out. He began taking boxes of evidence out of the police station and running it back to the bunker 2 at a time. In the span of about a minute, he delivered about 30 boxes of evidence to the bunker. Naruto, we lost contact with Roy and Laurel. Dick said as Naruto switched to thermal and saw Roy and Laurel on the ground, a fire spreading on the floor above him. I see them. Impulse shouted as he super sped upstairs and saw Brick fire his pistol at Black Canary, so he ran forward and caught the bullet. What the hell? Brick asked as he saw Impulse appear in a blur. Arsenal, phosphorus arrow. Impulse shouted as Arsenal pulled out the white phosphorus arrow Naruto made and launched it at the wall, unleashing a huge puff of white smoke and fire. This distracted Brick, which allowed Impulse to grab him and Black Canary and get out of the precinct before it burned to the ground. Impulse ran them back to the bunker as they appeared in a whoosh of air by Dig and Felicity. You guys okay? Dig asked. Yeah, little crispy but nothing serious. Roy said as he took off his mask and hood. Brick got away. Laurel said. But we've stopped him from getting rid of more evidence and we can track him again using the radio frequency. And he's probably not going to be at the police precinct since it's up in flames. Naruto said as they looked at him. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. Naruto's right. Next time we'll get him. Dick said as Laurel and Roy got out of their suits. And we've stopped him from ruining cases for dozens of other people locked up in Iron Heights. Brick won't be getting any more help. Felicity said as Naruto walked over to the computer. I'll run them over to the DA's office later. Naruto said. Good. We've finally got the leg up on Brick after days of being a step behind him. Laurel said. Although there is some bad news. Brick must have wised up because I can't track the radio signal from their walkie-talkies. He must have ditched them and is getting new ones to replace the old. Felicity said as they all exhaled. Great. Now we need to find him again and take down his army of bad guys. Roy said. Perhaps I could be of assistance. They heard as Naruto quickly turned, super sped forward, grabbed the person who spoke and rammed him against the wall. Who are you? Naruto shouted as the others looked and saw Naruto had slammed Malcolm Merlin against the wall before they could even blink. Merlin, what the hell are you doing here? Dig asked as Merlin looked at them and at the man who rammed him against the wall before he could blink. Here to talk. Would you mind telling your friend to let me go? Merlin said as Naruto didn't ease up his grip. Why should we? Roy asked. Because I came to discuss a mutual inconvenience you've been dealing with and who almost got the upper hand on you tonight. Merlin said as Dig looked at the others. Let him go. Dig said as Naruto let go of Merlin. Merlin cleared his throat and fixed his tie. You must be one of the Central City speedsters I've seen on the news. Merlin said as Naruto then speed punched him across the face. Merlin stumbled back and spit out some blood. That was for Oliver, Naruto said as he walked back to the others. Somebody please tell me how this is happening again. Felicity said, not happy to see Merlin in their hideout. Daniel Brickwell. It seems we have a common interest. Merlin said. You know that Brickwell killed your wife. Laurel said. Her name was Rebecca. Since my death, maintaining my usual network of associates has become, hey, shall we say problematic, but the fact that you were able to locate Mr. Brickwell even though he has gone to ground demonstrates your group's capacity. Merlin said. You were following us. We led you right to him. Roy said. What do you want? If we led you right to him then you have everything you need except you came here instead. Naruto said. It would seem your new friend is very observant. While I'm more skilled than all of you combined, I'm smart enough to realize that there is strength in numbers. Merlin told them. You want us to team up with you? Felicity asked, shocked at what she was hearing. I guess the question before you is whether your scorn for me outweighs your need to see Mr. Brickwell dealt with. Merlin said. You mean killed. Laurel said. You have your options. Weigh them. I'll be back in 24 hours. Merlin said as he left. I don't like him. Naruto said. Line break XXXXX. Naruto and Team Arrow got some sleep and weighed their options in dealing with Brick and if they should take up Merlin on his offer. Merlin would be back by the end of the day and they had that amount of time to consider the offer and find a way to take down Brick. Felicity was dead set on not working with him, especially since he's the reason Oliver is dead while everyone else was still deciding. Roy left to see Thea while everyone else was in the bunker. Naruto was sitting at a table with some tools, working on something while Laurel, Felicity, and Diggle continued their long debate on Merlin. How can you even be arguing for this right now? Felicity asked Laurel. Because I am actually paying attention. Brick has the Glades under siege and despite Naruto's help, we aren't winning. No offense, Naruto, Laurel said as they looked at Naruto working on something. None taken, Naruto said as he picked up a screwdriver and began tightening a bolt. He has the police running scared, he has us outnumbered and outgunned, and I'm not saying let's give Malcolm a glass case of his own. All I'm saying is let's use him the same way he wants to use us. Laurel said. To point him like a loaded gun at Brick. Dig said. Exactly. Laurel replied. Well, A, I'm not okay with that, and B, even if I was there has to be a better way to go about doing it than to get in bed with Malcolm Merlin. Felicity said. There isn't, Roy said as he walked in. Oliver is gone and there's only so much the five of us can do. I just found this out but the night of the siege, Malcolm saved Thea's life. He didn't have an ulterior motive, he didn't have an agenda. He just wanted to protect what he cared about. He cares about this city. He just went about it in a completely unimaginable way. So just like Thea did the night of the siege, we need him. I can't think of a world or a universe or a plane of existence where Oliver would agree to any of this. Felicity said. Well, Oliver isn't here anymore so we need to stop pretending like he is. Roy told her. We need to make decisions on our own. I genuinely have no idea how else we're supposed to stop Brick. And I genuinely don't know how we live with ourselves if we go about doing it this way. Felicity replied. So, what do we do? Do we vote? Roy asked. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Hell is full of good meanings, but heaven is full of good work. Naruto said as he worked on what he was doing as the others looked at him. Oh, sorry. Just kind of said what's in my head. Naruto, care to weigh in here? Dig asked. I'm just the visitor here. Naruto replied. Please, Naruto. We're just going back and forth. Any new kind of perspective would be nice. Dig said as Naruto put his tools down and turned to face the others. All right. Back when we were facing Harkness, Oliver told me that this kind of work is messy. That there are people in the world who only deal in extremes and only extreme methods will stop them, and I accept that it might be necessary. Naruto said, remembering when they fought Captain Boomerang. Having said that, I still think trusting Merlin is a bad idea. But didn't you say that we might need extreme measure to fight back? Roy asked. I did, and maybe we might. But I don't think Merlin is that measure. Look, I don't have the background with him like you guys do, and I don't know him personally, but from what I've seen, he's someone you don't trust. He lost someone he loves, and I understand that grief, but that doesn't justify the murder of 503 innocent people and the destruction of part of an entire city. Not to mention, he's the whole reason that Oliver is dead, so what do you think happens if we trust him? I know that you only want to use him to deal with Brick, but saying yes to him essentially gives Merlin a reason and excuse to come back. You'll never be rid of him. Naruto told them from his point of view. I for one don't want to spend another minute with Malcolm Merlin than I need to. Felicity said. The biggest thing is trust. Can you all say, right now, that you trust Malcolm Merlin even for a second? Naruto asked, as they all couldn't say yes to that. I'll be right back, Dig said as he left to talk to Merlin. Dig walked out of the bunker and into the alley beside Verdant, where he waited for Merlin to show up. Has the jury reached a verdict? Merlin asked as he stepped into the alley. It has. Guilty, Dig told him. I guess that means no then. Merlin said. You were expecting something different, Merlin? Dig asked. What? That you'd have some measure of common sense. Yes, Merlin said. You really thought we'd throw in with you? After what you did to Thea, to Sarah, to Oliver? Dig asked. To save your precious city, yes. Merlin replied. Well, that's the thing. Once we let the ends justify the means, that's just the first step. Dig said as he walked away. Towards what? Merlin asked. Becoming you, Dig said as he left and walked back into the bunker. How'd Merlin take it? Laurel asked. I think he just felt inconvenienced. Dig said. We made the right choice, right, by refusing Merlin's help. Laurel asked. I don't know if we made the right choice, Laurel, but we definitely did the right thing. Dig said as he looked around and didn't see Naruto. Where's Naruto? He had to head to Star Labs really quickly to pick up a few things. Felicity said as whoosh of air brushed past them and they saw Naruto appear carrying 2 cases. And there he is. Sorry I'm late. Had to get some things from Star Labs, and I talked to Dr. Wells about our problem with Brick and he managed to find a solution. Naruto said as he handed Felicity a thumb drive. What's that? Dig asked. Dr. Wells managed to work out a program and algorithm that can track hard-to-find radio transmissions using FRS. Since those frequencies aren't used as much as they used to be, the program can use our previous search to narrow down likely frequencies that Brick will be using. Naruto said as Felicity plugged in the program and it got to work on tracking down Brick. Nicely done, Laurel said as they now had a way to track down Brick. The program kept running when it managed to isolate the frequency Brick was using and was now tracking his location to an old abandoned hotel in the Glades. We got him, Felicity said. We have him, but now we need an army to take him and his thugs down. Roy said. You've got me. Even the odds a bit in your favor. And we've got Dig as well. We don't need Merlin. He's not the only person who's willing to fight. Naruto said as Laurel got an idea. Naruto's right. We need some extra support out there, but Merlin's not the only person in town. Laurel said. Who else is there? Dig asked. I can think of a few people. Laurel said as Dig nodded. Let's do it. It ends tonight. An all-out assault on Brick. Dig said as they nodded. Laurel and Roy left to get some friends to help while Dig walked over to get a balaclava mask. You won't be needing that, Dig. I got you something better. Naruto said as he handed him a case. What's this? Dig asked. Well, Lila did say to make you something to keep you safe out there, not to mention keep your identity a secret. This is it, Naruto said as he opened the care to reveal an black and gray colored metal helmet with a T-shaped visor. Polycarbonate tubing helmet with accompanied laments and polymers, Custom made along with a retractable visor that comes with a variety of enhanced vision modes. 2. Naruto, this is incredible. When did you have the time to design something like this? Felicity asked as Dig picked it up and looked it over. It's been a lackluster month since the holidays. I spent that time building and making some new toys I think you guys will like. How's it feel, Dig? Naruto asked as Dig put it on and strapped it tight as the visor came up. Amazing, Dig said as Naruto smiled. And that thing is bulletproof, so you won't need to worry about gunfire. Naruto said as Dig smiled. You outdid yourself, Naruto. Dig said. Happy to help, Naruto said as he suited up. Roy and Laurel returned to the bunker an hour later and got suited up. Roy filled up his quiver with arrows as Laurel put on her suit and strapped her tonfa around her waist. She was about to grab her sonic device when Naruto walked forward with the other case. When I said you could do with an upgrade, I think this one will do nicely, Naruto said as he opened the case to reveal a high-tech device that looked like a choker or a collar with a canary symbol in the center. 3. Oh my god, Laurel said as she picked it up. It reads your own vocal emissions and reprocesses it via a digital output into a multi-channel with quadruple the range and triple the resonance. When you scream, everyone better have good earplugs because you will knock them down, Naruto said as she was amazed. I can't believe you were able to make this so quickly, Laurel said. I've been known to work fast. And it's calibrated it to your own biometrics so no one else can use it, Naruto said as he took it. May I? Laurel nodded as she moved her hair, so Naruto could put it around her neck and secure it in place against her throat. Just scream and this thing will unleash hell. It's so powerful that it produces physical distortions of sound waves in the air. Every canary needs a cry, Naruto told her as she liked it. It's amazing, Naruto, Laurel said as adjusted the collar. And to make sure you guys don't lose your hearing, I've made these special earplugs that'll protect you from the intense sound, Naruto said as he handed Laurel, Roy, Dig, and Felicity the earplugs. All right, we stop Brick tonight, Dig said as they left the bunker. Brick and 2 of his guards were leaving the abandoned hotel they were staying at, ready to go on a drive when 2 arrows destroyed the headlights, and another hit a tire, deflating it. Brick looked and saw Arsenal, Black Canary, and a new guy standing in the street. Looks like you kids got yourself a babysitter to take you trick-or-treating. Well, look at that. Didn't anybody tell you Halloween was 3 months ago? Brick asked. Daniel Brickwell, you have failed this city, Black Canary and Arsenal shouted. And you seem to have failed in your maths. Can't you see there's a lot more of us than there is of you? Brick asked as 200 of his men joined him all armed with guns. Guess again, Brickhead, Sin shouted as she and 100 denizens of the glades joined Arsenal, Black Canary, and Dig all armed with pipes, bats, and other weapons. One person dressed in a black jacket, mask and armed with brass knuckles walked up beside Black Canary and she smiled. Is this little parade supposed to mean something? Or have you forgotten that I've got all the firepower? Kill them all, Brick shouted as his men raised their guns, but before they could fire a shot, an orange and white blur raced by all of them and all their guns were gone. What the hell is going on? The blur raced by them as Impulse stopped next to Dig. Sorry, I'm late, but I think that evened the odds a bit, he said as Dig nodded. Get him, Brick shouted as his men charged forward while Arsenal and the others charged at them and the two clashed in the street. Impulse super sped forward, knocking back several of Brick's men with ease as he jumped and punched a thug in the face, knocking him into a car. He ducked under a baseball bat and spin-kicked the bad guy in the face as he then moved his head to avoid a fist and slugged the gangbanger in the stomach with his fist, causing him to double over in pain. Impulse then began ducking and dodging punches and kicks from 4 gangbangers, and with his speed, it was easy. He grabbed the fist of one of the gangbangers and threw him over his shoulder and onto the ground as he then elbowed the second guy in the face. Impulse blocked and parried an attack from the third goon, grabbed his arm and threw him into the fourth. Impulse then quickly spin-kicked the first goon in the face, knocking him out, and then did a leg sweep of the third guy before knocking out the fourth with a right cross to the face. He then grabbed the second guy and threw him onto the ground. Impulse kept fighting, engaging at least 6 to 8 of Brick's men with ease while Arsenal fought 2 at a time. Black Canary fought against one of his men, using her tonfa stick to her advantage as Dig went through the bad guys with ease thanks to his extensive training with Oliver. Brick knocked out another of the Glades civilians who attacked him as he saw a new masked vigilante step up. "And which costume are you supposed to be?" Brick asked. "Wildcat." Wildcat said throughout a punch that Brick blocked but punched him in the gut with his other and followed that up with a punch to the face. Brick threw out a punch which Wildcat blocked and retaliated with 4 punches to the face, a punch to the chest, a knee to the stomach and a final elbow across the face as Brick was knocked back, his face bleeding from the assault but still on his feet. "Is that all you got?" Brick asked as he tackled Wildcat into a car and slugged him 3 times in the face. He tossed him to the ground and kicked him in the gut as Impulse ran up and punched Brick in the face, knocking him back. You've been ruining my business. Your business is over, Brick." Impulse as he ducked under a punch and responded with an uppercut that knocked Brick back. Impulse then kicked Brick in the gut as Brick threw out a punch which Impulse blocked and countered with an elbow to the face. Impulse then threw out 3 punches to Brick's chest, 1 more to his face as he then spun and covered Wildcat. "Canary, scream." Brick looked and saw Black Canary look at him before she opened her mouth and let loose a sonic scream. "Ah!" she shouted as her canary cry produced physical sound wave ripples that caused everyone to cover their ears and knocked Brick into a wall. Black Canary stopped as she ducked to avoid a punch which gave Brick the opportunity to run. Arsenal shot an arrow, getting the guy off Black Canary as she ran to check on Wildcat. She pulled up his mask and saw he was beat up but would be fine. "You're gonna be fine," she told him as she held him. Impulse got up and fought 3 more of Brick's men. Sin knocked out another Brick's men as she saw Black Canary, but it wasn't Sarah and before she could do something, she fought off another of Brick's men. Arsenal took out another 2 of Brick's men with his bow as Impulse knocked out 3 more of Brick's men when the familiar sound of an arrow hitting someone caused them to turn and see a guy who tried to sneak up on Black Canary got an arrow in the leg. And it was green-colored one. "Oliver," Black Canary said as Impulse and Arsenal smiled, glad that he was in fact alive. "Arsenal, let's end this now." Impulse shouted as he nodded. Arsenal pulled out 4 instant cement arrows from his quiver as Impulse began rounding up all of Brick's men they had dealt with and grouped them together. Once they were in groups of 15 or more, Arsenal fired an instant cement arrow near them, trapping them. They trapped most of Brick's men as Impulse took the rest and tied them up with rope and sat them on the street. The fight with Brick was over as all his men were taken care of but Brick was missing. Then Brick was thrown into the street, his hands tied and an arrow in his leg as everyone looked to see the arrow standing on the roof. "Felicity, contact the SCPD. Brick's captured. It's over," Dig told her as she did and soon police officers began pouring in and even a police bus arrived to take away all of Brick's men. Dig and Arsenal made their way back to the bunker as Impulse took Wildcat to the hospital. He arrived back in the Glades and hung back in the alley where Laurel was as the denizens of the Glades gathered around to see the arrow speak to everyone as the police took Brick into custody. "I've been gone, and I'm sorry. Sorry for what the city has had to endure in my absence. But you did endure it. And the evidence of that struggle is lying at my feet. You did not fail this city, and I promise I will not fail you by leaving it again." Arrow said as he fired a grapple arrow and grappled away, leaving the police arrest all of Brick's men. "He always knows how to make an entrance," Naruto said as Laurel smiled. "That he does," Laurel replied. "Thanks for taking Ted to the hospital." "Don't mention it." "Well, I think the city is safe now with Brick in bars. I've got to head back." "Stay safe, Laurel," Naruto said as they hugged. "Thank you," she said as he smiled and hugged back. "You're welcome. And if you need me, call and I'll be here before you can blink." Naruto joked as he super sped away. Naruto arrived in the bunker, seeing Dig, Roy, and Felicity watching the news all relieved and happy that Oliver was alive. "Guess he is a tough guy to kill," Naruto said as they turned to see Naruto holding his bag. "And the city is safe from Brick after tonight and with Oliver back, you'll be in good hands." "Heading back already?" Dig asked. Yeah, I've been away from Central City for too long. Naruto said. You sure you don't want to stick around? It's been fun having you here, and not just because you make our job about 100 times easier. Roy said as Naruto chuckled. He's right. Central City's got the flash. I'm sure Impulse could stand to be in Starling City a little longer. Felicity said. And I'd love to, but Central City's my home. Besides, I'm in the weeds with my girlfriend and I couldn't exactly tell her what I was doing here the past few days. Naruto said as they nodded. She doesn't know about you? Dig asked. Not yet. But she will. And it's a conversation that's long overdue. Naruto said as Dig nodded and walked over. Thank you, Naruto, for everything, Dig said as they shook hands. It was my honor. Fighting metahumans is fun and all, but it's nice to go back to basics every now and then. Naruto said as they chuckled. And you've got another option for crime fighting if fighting metahumans gets old. Dig said. He's right. You showed some serious skill out there. Roy said. Well, as you know, Oliver was a good teacher. Naruto said as he shook Roy's hand and hugged Felicity. Thanks for coming, Naruto. If you or Barry needs us, just call and we'll be there as fast as possible. Give it a day or so. Felicity said as Naruto chuckled. And if you guys need our help again, same thing. But we'll be here faster. And next time you see us, there will be more new toys to try out. Naruto said as he waved goodbye and walked out of the bunker into the alley as he saw Oliver walk up. So, how was it coming back from the dead? Something I wouldn't recommend, Oliver said as Naruto smiled. Glad to see you're alive and well. Naruto said as Oliver rubbed his chest and nodded. Alive, not so sure about the well part. I saw you fight. It seems you really picked up what I taught you. Oliver said. You're a good teacher. Naruto replied as he shook Oliver's hand. Thanks for helping everyone, Oliver said. More than happy to help. It was fun, but I think Starling is better with the arrow back. Naruto said as the two bro hugged. And if you need help, or something comes up, I'm just a call away. Likewise, Oliver said as Naruto gave him a two-finger salute and super sped away back to Central City. Line break XXXXX. After returning to Central City and telling the team how he helped stop a gangster from controlling the city and that Oliver is back, things went back into a regular routine. No new metahumans. The Team Flash just dealt with the regular criminals like robbers and the like. He did hear that Snart and Rory were free after their prison transport was attacked and they were on the run, but Naruto and Barry would be ready if they came back. Regarding Linda, Naruto decided to tell her the truth about him being a metahuman, so he set up a dinner at Central City's fanciest restaurant, and after dinner they'd go on a nice walk where Naruto would tell her who he really was. Naruto ate before the dinner, so he didn't need to order too much. After a beautiful, elegant, and slightly expensive dinner, Naruto and Linda walked out of the restaurant with their bellies full of food and wine. That was an amazing meal, Linda said as they walked out of the restaurant. Yes, it was. Although I think the company made it better, Naruto said as Linda smiled and gave him a kiss. Oh, flattery will not get you ahead, Naruto. Remember that, Linda said as he smirked. Really? Maybe I should try harder, Naruto said as he hugged her close and spun them around a bit, causing her to laugh. All right, so head back to my place, Linda asked as Naruto cleared his throat. Actually, you want to walk around a bit? Naruto asked as she nodded. Sure, she replied as they walked from the restaurant and began walking around the city. As they walked, Linda noticed that Naruto seemed to be preoccupied with something. Naruto, is everything okay? Huh, Naruto asked. You seem to be thinking about something pretty seriously, Linda said. Yeah, sorry about that, Naruto said as he cleared his throat. You're not going to propose, are you? I'm flattered, but we've only been dating a few months. I'd like to wait a little longer before I tie the knot, Linda said as Naruto coughed. No, nothing like that. I'm not ready to get married, even to you, Naruto said as he realized what he said. Not that I wouldn't love to be married to someone like you. You're amazing and you'd make an amazing wife, but I think it's way too early for something like that. Not that I've been thinking of that at all. No way. What's going on? Where am I? Naruto nervous rambles caused Linda to laugh her butt off. He saw her laughing and nervously exhaled. Oh, very funny. I think I nearly had a heart attack. Naruto said as Linda wiped a tear from her eye. Sorry, but making you feel uncomfortable and ramble like that is too good to pass up. Linda said. Geez, only you can make me like this. Naruto said as they kept walking. It's my superpower. Speaking of which, can you believe that we now have actual superheroes in the city? The Flash and Impulse. It's hard to believe that people like that exist, although it would explain a lot of the weird things that have been happening in the city. Linda said. You have no idea, Naruto said as they walked past an alley. So, what did you want to talk about? Linda asked. A lot, actually. The things that have been going on recently after the holidays and my little trip I took a few days ago. Naruto said as Linda nodded. Your little unexpected emergency. Linda said as Naruto nodded. Yeah, that. I was actually in Starling City helping some friends. Naruto said. Must be some friends if it was during the whole crisis with Brickwell. Linda said as Naruto nodded. Good friends. And actually, part of what I want to tell you. Naruto said. Oh, isn't that cute? They heard as they turned to see two guys dressed in hoodies and jeans and looked like they were up to no good. You two out for a little walk? Coming from someplace fancy, huh? He said, looking at their clothes. Yeah, dinner. Naruto said as he got in front of Linda. Oh, dinner. Well, you see, my friends and I haven't eaten yet. Maybe you could give us a few bucks, so we could grab a meal. He said as Naruto turned his head and saw three other guys walk out of the alley and surround him and Linda. Or you could just hand over everything you've got to make it easier. Naruto. Linda said as Naruto put her arm in front of her, protecting her. Look guys, we don't want any trouble. Just let us leave and we'll forget this happened. Naruto said. Oh, sounds like someone is scared. Hard to believe someone like you got a piece of ass like her. One of the guys said as that pissed off Naruto. One thing he didn't like were men who had no respect for women. Okay, last warning. Let us leave before you do something you regret. Naruto warned him as Linda heard the seriousness in her voice. Oh, warning. Then here's my warning. Give us everything you have in the bitch before you end up in the hospital. He said as he pulled out a switchblade and stepped forward to grab Linda, but Naruto grabbed his wrist tightly. Should have listened, Naruto said as he twisted the guy's wrist, breaking it and making him drop the knife. Naruto then punched him across the face and kicked him away as he moved Linda to the side and spin kicked the two goons behind him. The fourth guy tackled Naruto, but Naruto kneed him in the gut and threw him to the ground as he stopped the knife from the fifth guy, kicked out his right leg and knocked him out with a punch to the face. The second and third guy charged at him as Naruto blocked their punches. Naruto parried and elbowed the third guy in the face before doing a leg sweep and then another spin kick and knocked the second guy out as the fourth charged Naruto, but Naruto grabbed his arm, punched him across the face and then bashed his head against a trash can. He stopped when he heard a gun click and turned to see Linda being held by the first guy. He used his arm with the twisted wrist to hold Linda around the neck while he held a gun to her head with the other. Let her go, Naruto told him. Back the hell up, freak. Now, give me everything you have, or this bitch gets a bullet in the head. He said as Linda was freaking out. Naruto, she screamed as the guy tightened his grip. It's okay, Linda. It's going to be okay. Naruto reassured her. Did you hear me? Give me your wallet, he shouted. Naruto tightened his fists as flickers of lightning began to course around his hands and in his eyes, reflecting his emotional state. Please, stop. Please, stop. Please, stop. Calm down, Linda said as she closed her eyes and tried to calm herself down. The lights on the street lamps began to flicker on and off. The parked cars on the street followed suit and even the nearby buildings had their lights flickering. Do it now or I shoot. The guy shouted as he pointed his gun at Naruto. No, Linda shouted as her hands exploded in a burst of white light and produced a small shockwave that knocked the guy away and into a parked car. He hit the ground, knocked out from the impact as Naruto looked and saw Linda's hands were glowing white. No, 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 not again. Linda began panicking as she tried to get it to stop, shaking her hands but the light wouldn't go away. Linda! Naruto shouted as Linda turned to him. Naruto, it won't go away. Linda shouted as the light got brighter, causing Naruto to close and shield his eyes from the light. It's okay, I'm here. Naruto said as he slowly walked forward. Just calm down. I can't, she shouted as the light kept shining so bright that she had to close her eyes. Just listen to my voice. Focus on that, nothing else. Naruto said as he slowly walked forward, holding one hand out to try and feel where he was going. Just listen to my voice. It's going to be okay. Okay, okay. Linda said as she started to calm down a bit when she felt Naruto's hand grab her arm. It's okay, I'm here. Naruto said as the bright light began to dim. Naruto slowly opened his eyes and saw the white light lose its intensity before vanishing completely into Linda's hands. It's okay. Naruto held her close as she hugged him. Naruto looked around and saw the nearby lights were back to normal, guessing that whatever Linda was doing to them stopped. Linda broke away from the hug and looked at him. I have something to tell you, she said as Naruto looked at her and smiled. Naruto super sped in front of Linda, tying up all of the muggers who attacked them near a lamp post and then reappeared in front of her when he finished. So, do I? Naruto told her. Naruto called the CCPD about their mugging as they left for Star Labs. They took the elevator to the Cortex and walked down the hall as Linda was amazed at what she was seeing. This place is incredible. I can't believe it, Linda said as Naruto smiled. Yup. Star Labs has that effect on people, Naruto said as they walked down the hallway. And we can just walk in? Linda asked. Well, my parents helped found and build this place, so it give me a little leeway. And the guy who does run it now is practically family, Naruto said as they entered the Cortex and saw Dr. Wells, Caitlin, and Cisco waiting by the computers. Along with some friends who act like family. Oh, love you too, Naruto, Cisco said as Caitlin walked forward and hugged Linda. It's good to see you again, Linda, she said as Linda smiled. You too, Caitlin, Cisco, Linda said as Cisco waved. Nice to see you again, Ems Park. If Naruto brought you here, then I believe it's something that couldn't wait until morning, Dr. Wells asked as Naruto nodded. Yeah, sorry about that, but this kind of seemed urgent and something that you should know now, Naruto said as Dr. Wells pressed a button on the computer, showing street camera footage of Naruto, Linda and the thugs that attacked them. It showed Naruto beating the snot out of them, Linda using her power to create a force wave of white light that then knocked out the camera. You're lucky that Ms. Park destroyed the nearby cameras, or we'd be having a different conversation now, Dr. Wells said. Right, Naruto nodded as Linda walked around the Cortex and saw Naruto's impulse suit. I can't believe it. The weird times you'd vanish, the excuses and what happened over the holidays, it's because of this, Linda said as Naruto walked over. Yeah, Linda, look, I was going to tell you tonight and I've wanted to tell you for a long time, but this secret was something that I couldn't tell anyone. But I felt that now was the right time, Naruto said as Linda nodded. I know and I'm not angry. You're not the only one who was keeping a secret. But why am I here now? Linda asked. Besides, telling you what I really am. I think we can help you control your powers, Naruto said. Stopping and controlling metahumans is what we do best, Cisco said. Metahumans? Linda asked. People who were affected by the particle accelerator explosion 2 years ago. I was struck by lightning and put in a coma, and when I woke up I could run fast. Same thing with the Flash. And the other strange and bizarre incidents that have been going on, Naruto said as he walked over to the computer and brought up images and files on the metahumans they've stopped. Each of them were affected by the particle accelerator in some way, shape, or form and received powers. Unfortunately, none of them have been as altruistic or well-intentioned like Naruto here, Dr. Wells said. Yeah, they've turned into straight supervillains, Cisco said. And we've stopped them to keep the city safe. Caitlin said. And if the particle accelerator affected you, we can help you control your powers should something bad happen. Naruto told her. How did you get your powers? Caitlin asked. It was 2 years ago, before I transferred to sports. I was working on a lead that someone sent into CCPN anonymously. Linda said. What was the story? Naruto asked. The source said that 2 scientists were working on some kind of deadly experiment that needed to be stopped. They were scientists at Mercury Labs before their experiment and lack of restraint got them fired, but they were going to continue their work. The source said that they worked out of an old abandoned warehouse in the industrial sector, off the grid. To be honest, the whole story seemed kind of out there, but it was worth checking out. Linda said. Did the letter say who the scientists were? Dr. Wells asked. Yeah, Dr. Abner Croyd and his assistant, Marcus Daniels. Linda said as Cisco looked them up. Got them. Dr. Abner Croyd, PhD in theoretical physics, applied physics, medical physics, atomic physics, pretty much every kind of physics as well as optics. Worked at Mercury Labs with his assistant Marcus Daniels, who was a Hudson graduate on the way to get his PhD in energy research. Cisco said. Was. Naruto asked. Daniels was Croyd's assistant at Mercury Labs. In fact, he studied under Croyd when he did a residency at Hudson. But when Croyd was forced to leave Mercury Labs, Daniels dropped out of school. Cisco told them. And I think I know what they were working on that got Croyd fired from Mercury Labs. Pretty much all of his papers and research in college were about the applications and research of Dark Force. Yeah, nothing bad happens when you research something called Dark Force. Caitlin said. What's Dark Force? Linda asked. It's a form of cosmic radiation. Pure negative energy, unstable yet extremely powerful. Scientists have theorized for decades about the existence of this type of energy, thinking it's the key to understanding the universe. Naruto told her. It's also known as zero matter. It's been theorized that this type of energy can manipulate matter and change the grounding physics that bind all life. Of course, it's just been theory and speculation because no sane scientist would be able to replicate the requirements for creating Dark Force. Dr. Wells said. 4. Guess that didn't dissuade these 2. Where are they now? Naruto asked. They went off the grid after Croyd was let go and never resurfaced. Cisco said. Until the source gave me the lead. I went to the warehouse and saw a lot of flashing lights in the windows, but before I could sneak in, the particle accelerator went off. I ran when I was hit with a white light. I felt fine until the next morning when I accidentally burned my pillow with the light coming from my hands. I was lucky I didn't burn down my apartment. Linda told them. Has anything like tonight happened before? Caitlin asked as they walked over to the medical bed. No, I mean, sure my hands would light up every now and then, but it went away. Linda said. My theory is the stressful situation and emotional state caused Park's powers to manifest as they did. Dr. Wells said as Linda saw on the bed while Caitlin turned on the equipment. Now what? Linda asked. Now, we research your ability and that will enable us to help you the best way that we can. Don't worry, Park, you're in good hands. We wouldn't let anything happen to you, especially since Naruto would seek retribution. Dr. Wells said as Naruto nodded. In the worst way possible. Naruto said as he walked over. Don't worry, Linda. Star Labs is the best. I trust Dr. Wells, Cisco, and Caitlin with my life. Okay. Besides, it's not like the Central City Hospital has experts to deal with powers. Linda said as Naruto smiled. That's why we're here, Naruto told her. So, how many other metahumans have you guys helped? Linda asked as she saw them look at each other. We've only really helped just Naruto and the Flash. Most of the metas we've come across haven't been the friendly kind. There was one we tried to help but it didn't have a happy ending. Cisco told her. But don't worry. We're going to help you, Linda. We promise. Caitlin said as she began to do a quick medical diagnosis. So, this is what you guys do at Star Labs. Keep the city safe and help Naruto and the Flash take down metahumans. Linda asked. Bad metahumans. But we still have our lives outside of what we do. Well, I still have a life outside of this. Naruto said, getting Linda to chuckle and Caitlin and Cisco to look at him. I'd threaten you with a scalpel except I have a patient here. Caitlin said as she took a sample of blood and left to do a scan. Cisco left as well, giving Naruto and Linda some time alone. How are you feeling? Naruto asked as he sat down next to her. Like a stranger inside my own body. This is crazy, she said as Naruto nodded. Yeah, crazy kind of became the new normal for me ever since I woke up from my coma. Naruto told her. Did you ever think your life would be like this? Fighting supervillains and things like that? Linda asked as Naruto chuckled. To be honest, I can't really imagine a life where this doesn't happen on a regular basis. Naruto said as he saw how worried she was. Linda, look, everything is going to be fine. Caitlin, Dr. Wells, and Cisco are going to help you with your powers, and after that you can go about everything like nothing happened. I don't think I can. I mean, you saw what happened tonight. Linda told him. Yeah, you knocked out a guy who threatened to shoot you. One of the hottest things I've seen in our short time as boyfriend-girlfriend. Naruto said as Linda chuckled. And I also saw you get control of your powers after it happened. These tests are just going to reaffirm what I already know. And what's that? Linda asked. That Linda Park is the most badass, sassiest, sexy, strong-willed woman I know, and she controls her powers. Not the other way around. Naruto told her as she smiled. You always know what to say to make me feel better. She replied as Naruto smiled. It's my other superpower. Naruto replied as Linda leaned in and kissed him. It was a short kiss but passionate. Does this mean you forgive me for not telling you sooner? No, not yet, Linda said as Naruto kissed her again. How about now? He asked as Linda thought for a moment. Getting there, she replied. This is torture, he said as he kissed her again. Excuse me, they heard as they stopped and saw Caitlin. You two can do that on your own time. Yeah, kind of sucks to the single people in this room. Cisco said as they chuckled. Sorry, guys. Naruto apologized as he stood up. Well, I did a quick checkup on Linda and from what I can see, there seems to be no negative side effects to her powers. She's 100% completely healthy, although you might want to take it easy on the sweets. Caitlin said as Linda nodded. What now? Linda asked. Now, we all go home and get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll conduct some tests on M's Park's powers. Dr. Wells told them. Sounds like a good idea. Naruto said as he and Linda went back to her apartment to get some rest, unaware that a new deadly metahuman they would need to deal with. Line break XXXXX. The next morning, Naruto woke up as the sun shined in his face through a window. Naruto adjusted his eyes and looked around as he saw he was in Linda's apartment. He looked down and saw a splotch of brown hair on his chest, causing him to smile. He ran his hand through Linda's hair as she stirred awake and looked up at him. Morning, she said as Naruto smiled. Morning, he replied as he leaned down to kiss her, and she kissed back. How'd you sleep? You mean the 6 hours of sleep after our amazing romp? Linda asked as Naruto chuckled. The best sleep I've had in a long time. You've been holding out on me, haven't you? Well, I couldn't show you everything because I hadn't told you about my powers. Naruto said as Linda kissed his bare chest. So, I'm guessing I can expect a repeat of last night? Linda asked as Naruto chuckled. Whenever you want, he replied as Linda kissed him. Good, but not now. Not everyone has your stamina, Speedy. Linda joked as she sat up, moving the blanket off her body. That's not sticking, Naruto said as Linda looked over her shoulder. I don't know. I kind of like it. Don't you? She asked as she stood up and walked to the bathroom, giving Naruto a clear view of her rear. That's not fair. You know I'm not that strong-willed, Naruto said as Linda shut the door to the bathroom. Naruto checked his phone and saw it was around 7 a.m. so he super sped back to the shelter, took a quick shower, changed into clean jeans, a dark orange shirt, black button-up, and jacket and then super sped to Jitters to get some coffee. By the time Linda got out of the shower in her robe, she saw Naruto in the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee on the counter and the smell of bacon wafting in the room. Hope bacon and eggs are okay. It's basic, but I can do good basic. Naruto said as Linda walked over and took a piece of bacon and took a bite. And it's good basic. You continue to amaze me, Naruto Namikaze. Linda said as Naruto smiled. Well, stick around and if you can keep up, you'll get used to it. Naruto said as she took another bite of bacon. I'm not leaving anytime soon. I like a challenge. And like I told you before, I hate taking things slow. She said as they shared a kiss when Naruto's phone went off. He took it out of his pocket and saw it was CCPD. Hang on, Naruto said as he answered. Yeah, got it. I'll be right there. Police emergency? Linda asked. 2 dead bodies were found near a bar on Hoover Avenue. Barry and I are needed at the scene. Naruto said as he put his phone away and took a bite of bacon. All right. You've got work and so do I. I've got that baseball piece to finish. Linda said as she took a sip of coffee. All right. Meet you at Star Labs, later. Naruto asked as she nodded. See you there, Speedy. Linda said as Naruto grumbled. You'll grow to love it. No, I won't, he said as he gave her a quick kiss, grabbed his coffee and super sped to the CCPD. Naruto arrived in Barry's lab in a whoosh of air and grabbed a suitcase of equipment as he then super sped to the crime scene. He stopped in a nearby alley with no camera coverage and joined the civilian foot traffic on the sidewalk as he walked to the crime scene. He walked down the street and saw the squad cars and yellow tape set up along with officers keeping curious pedestrians away. Naruto walked up as the officers told him to step back. CSI, Naruto said as he held up his intern badge and they let him through. Naruto walked into the crime scene and saw 2 dead bodies. Both were face down in the dirt with Joe and Eddie over them. Joe. Naruto. Hey, got 2 dead ones. Joe said as Naruto walked over. Where's Barry? Eddie asked. He should be here in a sec. Barry's always been late since I've known him. Naruto said as Joe nodded. And since I've known him, which says a lot. Think you're okay with doing a preliminary report? Joe asked as Naruto nodded. Sure thing, Naruto said as he put down his briefcase and opened it up. He put on a pair of gloves and began walking around the bodies, looking them over and as well as the crime scene. 2 dead men. First Vic is roughly 60 years of age. Second Vic, maybe early 30s. No sign of a struggle and wallet, phones, and personal belongings were taken. Possibly a theft. Thief might have killed them after he got what he needed. Joe said. Who called it in? Naruto asked as he knelt down and checked the skin on the victims. A morning jogger on his run. He flagged down a patrol officer. Eddie said. We think this happened last night. No street cameras here and without any it's going to take some time to figure out what happened. Joe told him. Well, I can tell you that this did happen last night. The skin on each victim still has its tone so the murder happened within the last 12 to 16 hours. No defense wounds that I can see, no gunshot powder burns, knife wounds, and lack of blood here might indicate that something else killed them. Maybe a poison was used. Naruto said as he saw the outline of an extra pair of shoes. And I think I found our third person. Men's size 11 shoes. Not bad. Joe said as he wrote down what Naruto said. Did you go to CSI school like Barry? Eddie asked as Naruto began making a mold of the shoe. Nope. Just a quick study. CSI work is hard, but nothing compared to physics. Naruto said as he saw Barry running. Speak of the devil. Hey, guys. Sorry I'm late. Barry said. No problem. Just got started. Naruto said as he looked them over. All right. What do we got? Barry asked as he put his case down and put on his gloves. 2 dead men. No it and no visible sign of death. No blood splatter or other obvious signs of attack. Naruto said as Barry nodded as he turned over the younger victim and they saw he was a 30-year-old Caucasian wearing casual clothes. You're right. No visible signs of attack. No signs of a struggle. He didn't know what was happening until it was too late. Barry said as he looked over the body and saw some stress fractures and impressions on the left wrist. Hang on. Barry lifted the wrist as Naruto knelt next to him and saw the stress fractures and impressions. Stress fractures. Maybe his wrist was grabbed. No signs of electricity burns, so it's not death by taser. Barry said as he turned the wrist and Naruto saw the faint glimmer. Wait. Naruto said as he turned the wrist and they saw the faint glimmer of oil on the victim's arm. The oil from a fingerprint. Fingerprint. Maybe by our attacker. Barry said as he grabbed some equipment and took a fingerprint copy off the body. We'll run it through the system, maybe we'll get a match. Based on the lack of physical evidence, we'll need that. Naruto said as he turned over the other victim and recognized him from last night. Wait a minute, I know this guy. You do? Barry asked. Yeah, Drive. Abner Croit. Former employee of Mercury Labs. Naruto said as Barry looked over for any kind of evidence. How did you know that? Barry asked. A long story, I'll explain later when we're in private company. Naruto said as Barry nodded as they had the coroner come over and bag the bodies. They went back to the CCPD and sifted through the evidence in Barry's lab to figure out what happened, but they got nothing. The shoe print was too common to narrow down and the fingerprint wasn't in the system. They kept working on stuff when Joe walked in. Hey, guys, we've got IDs on our two victims. Younger one is Alexander Reynolds, engineer at Mercury Labs. The older one is Dr. Abner Croit, former employee at Mercury before he was forced to leave. Joe said as he handed them the two files. How'd you figure this out? Barry asked. Their photos have been in scientific magazine circulations for years. We ran their photos through the database and got a match. No criminal records for either of them. Joe said as Naruto looked them over. You were right. How did you know this guy? Barry asked Naruto. It's best if we talk about this at Star Labs. Meet me there. I've got someone to pick up. Naruto said as they nodded. Naruto super sped to the shelter and then into the alley near Central City Picture News. Naruto walked into the news building with Kurama on his shoulder as he saw people busy at work to get out the next issue and stories. He saw people giving him weird looks, but he paid them no attention as he saw Linda at her desk. She saw him and waved as she handed her complete story to the editor and grabbed her coat and bag. Hey there, Linda said as she walked over and instead of hugging Naruto, she picked up Kurama and began coddling him, which made the fox more than happy. And hey to you too, Naruto. Haha, very funny, Naruto replied as she kissed her cheek. So, ready to head to Star Labs? Yeah, Linda said as they walked out of the CCPN and into the nearby alley. Take a deep breath and try not to move. Naruto said as Linda held Kurama close to her chest. Naruto held her around the waist and super sped them to Star Labs. Caitlin, Cisco, and Dr. Wells were in the cortex when a whoosh of air rushed past them, knocking papers in the air, and they saw Naruto and Linda appear. Kurama jumped out of her arms and shook his fur to readjust himself from the discomfort of moving so fast as Linda wobbled a bit. Wow, I've got to get used to that, Linda said as Caitlin picked up some of the scattered papers. Felicity was right about paperweights, Caitlin said as Cisco nodded. Sorry, guys, Naruto said. It's quite all right. We've grown accustomed to it. Now, shall we get started? Dr. Wells said as they moved to one of the spare labs in the building where they had set up all kind of equipment to test and analyze Linda's powers. Linda stood in the testing room, having taken off her jacket and in a Star Labs t-shirt. Caitlin was there, putting monitor nodes on her arms and chest while Dr. Wells, Cisco, Naruto, and Kurama were in the observation room. So, what's this for? Linda asked. The nodes will let us monitor your vitals while we test your powers. Our computers will then record everything and from there we'll understand exactly what you can do. Caitlin said as Linda nodded. Caitlin then walked into the observation room as they turned on their computers. Okay, we're all set. Nodes sending back the data. Her vitals seems good, heart rate's a little up but that's probably due to nerves. Cisco said as Naruto nodded. Okay, Ems Park. We'll begin our test now. Dr. Wells said as Linda nodded. Right, So, what do I do? Linda asked. Try and concentrate. Bring out your powers, Dr. Wells said as Linda nodded. Linda stared at the wall before closing her eyes and trying to concentrate. She tried to remember what she was feeling yesterday when she used her powers, not the fear but the adrenaline. Her hands began to flicker with white light as the lights in the training room flickered as well before the energy was sucked out and absorbed into Linda. The lights short-circuited and exploded as the energy transferred into Linda and her hands began glowing like a lighthouse. Whoa, Linda said as she looked at her hands but then closed her eyes and quickly pointed her hands away from her face to avoid blinding herself from the extremely powerful light her hands were producing. How's she doing? Naruto asked as they looked at the computers and her vitals reported everything was fine. Her vitals are great. No adverse effects from what the energy her body is producing, Caitlin said. And it seems that not only can she produce light from her hands, but she can absorb it as well, Dr. Wells said. Yeah, when she absorbed the energy from the lights, her vitals improved. It's like she can feed on energy like blackout, but in a much better way, Cisco said as Naruto nodded. Okay, Linda, let's test out your powers, Caitlin said as she pressed a button and a large block of metal resting on a podium rose out from the floor in front of her. The block you see is made up of tungsten. It has the highest melting point of all metals at 6,192 degrees Fahrenheit. We've rigged it up with a highly advanced thermometer. Use your light and try to melt it, Dr. Wells said as Linda nodded. She pointed her hands at the block and two beams of white light shot out and hit the metal block of tungsten. Linda concentrated as the white light kept shooting and the metal began to glow and get hot. She's already reached 2000 Kelvin, Caitlin said as everyone was amazed that she was shooting out light that was 3000 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's rising, Dr. Wells said as the temperature kept rising, now reaching 3000 Kelvin. How are her vitals? Naruto asked as Cisco looked them over. Perfect. Her vitals are stable, Cisco said as Naruto nodded. Linda kept going as the heat from the light she was producing melting through the tungsten and destroyed the thermometer, recording her highest temperature as 4000 Kelvin or about 6740 degrees Fahrenheit. Linda's light beam had melted straight through the tungsten and hit the wall, melting the metal and concrete and made a small hole. Linda, that's enough, Naruto said as Linda stopped, revealing the newly made hole in the wall. Sorry, she said as they nodded. I guess I'll have to fix that later, Naruto said as Dr. Wells nodded. Besides the little melting, Ms. Park's powers are very impressive. Let's head to the cortex, Dr. Wells said as they went back to the cortex. Linda drank some water, feeling a little spent from using her powers like that, but she was fine. So, what's the prognosis? Linda asked. Prognosis is you're a badass, Cisco said as Kurama jumped onto the chair next to him, so Cisco scratched his ear. Didn't need to tell me twice, Naruto said as Linda smiled. It appears there is no negative side effect to Ms. Park's powers. In fact, it's the opposite. When you absorbed the light from the testing room, your vitals improved as if your body's own electrical energy was increased and rejuvenated, Dr. Wells said as Linda looked a little lost. It's essentially like replacing electrolytes after a run or marathon, but you can do it with energy, Caitlin said as Linda nodded. So, what exactly can I do? Linda asked. It would appear that Linda has acquired a form of photokinesis, Dr. Wells said. The ability to control light, Linda said as Naruto looked at her. I've picked up a thing or two since we started dating. Yes, it would appear that Ms. Park is somehow able to channel and produce immense photons as pure light, and from the readings we picked up, there's a chance she can produce pure starlight, Dr. Wells said. Wow, that would mean that she can reach up to 5330 Kelvin, Naruto said as Dr. Wells nodded. What about the lights flickering last night? Linda asked. Not only can you produce and project light, but you can absorb it as well. Last night, when your emotions were all over the place, you were subconsciously using your powers and were trying to absorb the nearby lights for energy, Caitlin said. So, is it all energy she can absorb or just light? Naruto asked. Let's test it, Cisco said as he handed her a AA battery. Linda held it in her hands, but nothing happened. He then handed her a flashlight that was turned on as she then absorbed the light from the flashlight, rendering it useless and making her feel better. Whoa, like a 12 shot of espresso without the crash. Linda said as she felt great. Guess that answers that question. Naruto said. With the ability to produce and control light, there is a lot that Ms. Park will find herself able to do. Dr. Wells said. Awesome. Now we just need to get you a uniform and a name. I'm kind of partial to Dr. Light. Cisco said. Cisco. I'm not a doctor. Linda said. Semantics. Cisco replied. Yeah, and Linda's not getting a uniform or a name or a mannequin next to mine unless it's what she wants. Naruto said as Cisco nodded. Really? Linda asked. Yeah, look. This whole thing was to tell you about me, who I really am and what I do. After learning about you, you're more than welcome to come to Star Labs and we can help you with your powers, but don't feel that you're obligated to do what I do. I don't want you to put yourself in danger. Naruto told her as Linda smiled. That almost sounded like you trying to tell me what to do. Linda said in a curious tone. I'm not. I just want to keep you safe. It's dangerous what I do. Naruto said as Linda smiled. And I love you wanting to keep me safe, but I'm not a damsel in distress. And I don't know what to do no with these powers. For now, let me just get a handle on them. Linda said as everyone nodded. That's a good idea, Caitlin said as they heard footsteps and saw Barry walk in. Hey, guys. Hey, Linda, Barry said with a wave as Naruto smiled. Perfect timing. Meet the fifth person of our little group. Barry Allen, otherwise known as the Flash. Naruto said in a dramatic tone as Barry chuckled. Just Barry is fine, Linda. Like always. Barry said as Linda nodded. Nice to meet another metahuman. Linda said as Barry raised an eyebrow. Did she just say meta? Barry asked. Yeah, when I told Linda who I was, turns out she had something to tell me. Naruto said as Linda held out her left hand and it began glowing bright white. Ah, so, I guess everything's all okay here then. Barry said as everyone nodded. Good, because we're getting nowhere on the case. Joe tried to find us more leads, but nothing panned out. Now's a good time to tell me how you knew our dead guy. What case? Dr. Wells asked. 2 dead scientists from Mercury Labs were found today. No gunshots, knife wounds or any other obvious forms of death, and the ME came back to us with no heart failure. Barry said. One of the victims was Dr. Abner Croit. Naruto said. The guy the first told you about from the story? Linda asked as Naruto nodded. Well, that is a coincidence if I've ever heard one. Dr. Wells said sarcastically. Yeah, all sorts of coincidences went out the window when the particle accelerator went off. Mind filling me in? Barry asked as they got him caught up. Okay, so we've got 2 dead scientists. One was let go due to research into a deadly theoretical element of the universe with no obvious sign of what killed them. Barry stated as everyone nodded. Seems like that's it. Naruto said as they heard footsteps and Joe walked in. And more. Joe said as he noticed Linda. Oh, we have company. It's okay, Joe. She knows. Barry said. Joe, meet Linda Park, my girlfriend and newly discovered metahuman. Linda, meet Detective Joe West, one of CCPD's finest. Naruto said as Linda waved. Hi, she said as Joe smiled. Hey, so, still nothing on our 2 Vicks, but I did get Dr. McGee to allow us to see her and ask some questions. Maybe it'll give us something. Joe said as Naruto and Barry nodded. All right, I'll see you later. Naruto said as he kissed Linda goodbye. Line break XXXXX. Barry, Naruto, and Joe arrived at Mercury Labs and waited in the lobby by the reception desk until they were escorted to Dr. McGee's lab. Naruto looked around, seeing everyone in lab coats, and it kind of reminded him of when he would visit his parents at Star Labs when he was younger. Detective. The receptionist called. Dr. McGee is ready for you. Please follow our security. Thank you. Joe said as they followed the security guard up to Dr. McGee's office. Gentlemen, sorry for the wait, we've been extremely busy around here. Dr. McGee said. No problem. Thank you for taking the time to see us. Joe said. Naruto, good to see you again. I see you have joined law enforcement. Dr. McGee said as Naruto chuckled. Just trying to help people. But don't worry, I haven't given up on science. Naruto said as she nodded. So, what can I help you with, gentlemen? Have you found my stolen Tachyon prototype, or are you here to blackmail me for another? She asked as Naruto raised an eyebrow. Do you have another? Naruto asked as Joe cleared his throat. We're here about one of your employees, Alexander Reynolds. Joe said. Yes, one of our finest engineers. Is something wrong? Dr. McGee asked. He was found dead, Barry said as Dr. McGee was surprised. Dead? Good Lord, what happened? She asked. We were hoping you could help us with that. What can you tell us about Mr. Reynolds? Joe asked. Well, he's always been a loyal and steadfast employee. I can have his records and personnel files sent over. Dr. McGee said as Joe nodded. Thank you. Have you noticed any odd behavior or unusual activity recently? Joe asked. No, nothing of the sorts. But I can't speak for every one of my employees. I would speak to some of Reynolds' coworkers in the engineering lab. I can have you escorted later. Dr. McGee said as they nodded. Dr. McGee, do you know this man as well? Barry asked, showing her a photo of Abner Croit. Yes, Dr. Croit. He was a former employee of mine. Don't tell me he's a suspect. Dr. McGee asked. No, he was found dead with Mr. Reynolds. Naruto said as Dr. McGee froze for a second before sitting down. How well did you know Dr. Croit? Very well. We've been colleagues and friends for a long time. It was sad to have to see him go. Dr. McGee said. Go. I thought you terminated him. Naruto said. It was a little of both, to be honest. Abner and I have known each other for years, and he was one of my first hires when I started Mercury Labs. He's contributed to a lot of our breakthroughs. Dr. McGee said. So, why did you terminate him? If Dr. Croit was as big of a contribution, what happened? Barry asked. The problem wasn't Abner but of an assistant he brought on, Marcus Daniels. Daniels was a very gifted scientist, but he was eccentric to say the least. He was obsessed with trying to recreate Dark Force. Dr. McGee said. Cosmic radiation. Barry said as Dr. McGee nodded. Yes. Daniels had studied under Abner for a long time. Abner treated him like a son and shared his ambition, and when Abner came to me to get Daniels as his assistant, his drive only intensified. He began spending every waking moment to try and create Dark Force, even used some of our funds to build a reactor that would create a reaction, and it nearly destroyed the building and the city had Abner not stopped him. Dr. McGee told them. So, why didn't you just let Daniels go? Joe asked. The various safety concerns and violations couldn't be overlooked. Abner was an honorable and loyal friend, and he felt responsible. He was the one who petitioned Daniels to be his assistant, and he felt that he was partially responsible for what transpired. I tried to talk him out of it, but he made his mind. Dr. McGee said in a somber tone, remembering what happened. Abner was a good friend, and I offered to help him however I could. A larger pension and recommendations to any other kind of job he could get. And Daniels? Naruto asked. Well, when Daniels was let go, some colorful language was spewed out, and he said he'd prove how wrong I was about Dark Force, but since I haven't heard anything since, I doubt he's been successful. Dr. McGee said. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Joe whispered to himself. Do you happen to have an address for the two? Barry asked as Dr. McGee gave them all the relevant information. They talked to some of the co-workers of Abner and Daniels, and they pretty much said the same thing of Abner being nice and professional while Daniels was isolated, driven, and a loner. Daniels nearly killed them by creating a Dark Force experiment, and when he was let go, he vowed to prove them all wrong. Alex Reynolds, the engineer, was someone that Abner worked closely with in his projects, and they were friends. After heading to Mercury Labs, they went to Croit's apartment flat to find some clues as to who attacked them. They entered to see it was plain and messy, not in the sense that someone broke in, but that Croit never really picked up after himself. Damn, this place is a mess. Joe said. Yup, true sign of a genius is that they're slobs. Naruto joked as he looked around and found some old awards Croit got when he was younger. This mess will make it hard to find out if anything is missing. Joe said as Barry looked around and saw some of Croyt's papers and calculations on Dark Force creation. It looks like Croyt was still working on Dark Force creation. He might have beyond something. It seems he was getting close. Barry said. That both confuses and terrifies me. Joe said as he looked around. Rightly so. Naruto said as he picked up an old photo of Croyt with his coworkers at Mercury Labs. Hey, here's Reynolds. If both Croyt and Reynolds were killed, my gut tells me that Daniels may have been behind it. Joe said. But if Daniels looked up to Croyt like a father, why kill him? Naruto asked. Maybe it was an accident. Joe replied. Why kind of accidental death doesn't leave any physical evidence? Barry asked. I'm guessing the meta-human kind. Joe said as he took some of Croyt's calculations as evidence. Linda says the source of her story on Daniels and Croyt thought they were trying to re-engineer a Dark Force experiment, like the one at Mercury Labs. Maybe it worked. Naruto said. That's all kind of bad. Joe said. Where was the lab? Barry asked as they super sped Joe to the old warehouse. They arrived outside the warehouse and saw the windows were all destroyed, and the cargo bay doors was blown off its hinges. Damn, what the hell happened here? Joe asked as he pulled out his gun. Nothing good. Barry said as they walked in and saw the trashed remains of a lab. There were computers and equipment along the wall, all of which were destroyed along with scattered and burned papers, broken glass all over and thrown tables. But what drew their attention was a small mechanical and glass dome in the center of the warehouse connected to a large power source. It looked to be how they Croyt and Daniels were going to make Dark Force, as it looked like a reaction and containment chamber. They were definitely up to something here. Look, heavy-duty computer equipment, and that looks like a reaction and containment chamber that could be used for Dark Force. Naruto said as he looked at it. The question is whether they succeeded and if Daniels was affected. Joe said as Naruto super sped back to Star Labs, grabbed his goggles and appeared in the warehouse in a whoosh of air. Naruto put his goggles on and switched through various modes as he looked through the containment chamber. Nothing came up in thermal, night, or ultraviolet. Naruto switched to energy scanning mode and he saw what looked like black-colored residue around the chamber, and it was giving off a unique energy signature. I think I got something. Naruto said as Barry and Joe walked over. Some kind of unique energy signature my goggles picked up, and it's not radiation. Naruto took off his goggles and handed them to Barry, who looked it over and saw the energy signature. Is that what I think it is? Barry asked as he handed the goggles to Joe, who looked. If you think that it's Dark Force residue, then I believe you're right. Naruto said as Barry took out a small vial and scrapped some of the residue onto a cotton swab and put it in the vial. And I'm guessing Dark Force is bad? Joe asked. It's cosmic radiation and in the wrong hands could be seriously dangerous. Barry said as Naruto nodded. We've got to find Marcus Daniels. Naruto said as they returned to Star Labs. Line break XXXXX. Naruto and Barry returned to Star Labs while Joe went to the CCPD to put out an APB on Marcus Daniels and track him down. He was now the prime suspect in Croyt and Reynolds' deaths. Team Flash plus Linda were in the cortex as Dr. Wells examined the residue they collected, running it through the mass spectrometer to get a thorough readout. This stuff is as impossible as the three of you, Dr. Wells said, referring to Linda, Barry, and Naruto. So, it is Dark Force. Naruto said as Dr. Wells nodded. I'm afraid so. Whatever Croyt and Daniels did worked, and I don't think it would have been possible if not for the particle accelerator explosion. The dark matter emitted from that night must have been the missing ingredient needed for creating Dark Force. Dr. Wells said, looking at the papers of Croyt's calculations. If Dark Force has been in Central City for nearly a year, then how come the city hasn't exploded or been sucked into a black hole or something like that? Linda asked. That's the million-dollar question. Dr. Wells said as one of the computers beeped. What's that? Linda asked. I set up a facial recognition program to try and track down Marcus Daniels. Cisco said as he brought up a map. Traffic cameras just picked him. Where? Barry asked as Cisco brought up camera footage and it showed Daniels in the middle of an intersection wearing a black trench coat surrounded by destroyed cars. They saw him walk down the street as he seemed to be going after someone. That can't be good, Caitlin said. We've got to stop him before he hurts more people. Naruto said. Gentlemen, be careful. We don't know what Marcus Daniels is capable of. Dr. Wells said as Naruto and Barry grabbed their suits and raced through the city. The Flash and Impulse raced through the city and skidded to a stop in the intersection. They saw in the traffic cameras and saw the destruction and people running away. They looked around and Flash saw Daniels walk down the street as cars swerved out of the way. We've got him, Flash said as Daniels held out his hands and dark crackling energy fired out and hit a light pole, knocking some people down. Impulse looked and saw Daniels focus his attention on person in particular, and he was a scientist from Mercury Labs they met earlier today. Dr. Edwin Young, a scientist they spoke to who worked closely with Dr. Croit. Aren't you happy to see me again, Edwin? Daniels shouted as Edwin crawled away as fast as he could. Daniels, why are you doing this? Edwin shouted. Settling a grudge that's been long overdue. You ruined my life. Daniels shouted as his hands glowed with dark energy. And now I'll take yours. He fired the energy, but Impulse ran by and moved Edwin out of the way. Go, get out of here. Impulse shouted as Edwin ran away. So, you're the speedsters I've read about. Nice to finally meet people just like me. Daniels said as the Flash appeared next to Impulse. We're nothing like you. We don't hurt people, Flash said. If you want to change the world, sometimes you need to get your hands dirty. Daniels said as Impulse got an idea. And that includes murdering Alexander Reynolds and Dr. Croit. Impulse said as he saw Daniels got mad as his hands tightened into fists. We found their bodies. What change for the world came from killing them? Reynolds deserved to die. He was the one who told Christina McGee about our experiment and got Croit fired. He ruined everything, Daniels shouted. And Croit? Flash asked. It was an accident. He went to tell Reynolds what happened, but he should have been happy. We finally achieved our dream. Daniels shouted as he held his hand out and summoned the dark energy. Dark force, limitless power in the palm of my hand. Your lab, you bonded with the dark force. Impulse said. Nothing can stop me now. And I'll complete Croit's dream and destroy Dr. McGee and everyone who tried to ruin his dream. Daniels said as his powers began to affect the surrounding area as the lights began to flicker. That's not what Croit would have wanted. Flash said. Don't tell me what he would have wanted. Daniels shouted as a wave of dark energy shot out from his body and hit them. The Flash and Impulse were knocked through the air and hit parked cars. Oh, that hurt, Flash said as they groaned in pain. Damn it, Impulse said as he stood up and saw Daniels walk toward them, his hands glowing with black energy. I'm finishing his life's work. Everything he wanted, everything he showed me is possible, and I'm not going to let anyone stop me. Least of all you two. Daniels shouted as he fired a dark energy blast as Impulse and Flash ran out of the way. Okay, how do we stop this guy? Flash asked over the comms as they super sped out of the way of another dark energy blast. Still working on that, Cisco told him as the cops arrived. They told Daniels to freeze, but he didn't stop, so they opened fire, but the bullets hit his body and dropped to the floor like nothing happened. What the hell? Dr. Wells, what was that? Impulse asked. It seems he can absorb the kinetic energy from the bullets. It'll make fighting him a lot harder. Try and blindside him. Dr. Wells told him as Impulse saw Daniels fire an energy blast at the cops, but he ran and got them out of the way. Got it, Flash said as he ran into the middle of the street. Come on, Daniels. That's all you got. Rah! Daniels shouted as he tried to blast him, but the Flash moved out of the way. Impulse ran at Daniels, and when he got close, he jumped and hit Daniels across the face with an accelerated mass punch. The impact sent Daniels tumbling across the ground and knocked out. Guess Dark Force isn't that strong, Impulse said as he walked over to Daniels' body and pulled him up to take him to Star Labs when Daniels grabbed his arm. Daniels looked up at Impulse with his eyes glowing black and no bruise or cut at all. Thanks for the boost, he said as he then grabbed Impulse by the throat and hoisted him up. How about I show you how powerful Dark Force is? Daniels concentrated as Impulse felt all the energy from his body was being drained. His skin began to lose its color and all the electricity his body produced was being sucked into Daniels and it made him feel stronger. While his energy was being drained, Daniels also began infecting Impulse with negative energy and would have killed him there if he didn't vanish in a whoosh of air. Damn it, Daniels said as he quickly left the scene. Barry appeared back in Star Labs carrying Naruto who was barely conscious. Guys! Barry shouted as Cisco helped him and they put Naruto onto a gurney. Caitlin ran over and took off the top part of his suit as Cisco connected medical nodes to Naruto's chest. What's happening? Dr. Wells asked as they saw Naruto's pulse was dangerously low and his skin was really pale. He's lost a lot of his body's bioelectricity. His pulse is really weak and I'm barely getting a heartbeat. Caitlin said as she connected an IV to his arm. Guys, look, Linda said as they saw the what looked like a black splotch around his neck where Daniels grabbed him. It wasn't just on his skin as it was now coursing through his veins like a visible poison. What's is it? Barry asked as Naruto's vitals began to get worse. I don't know but whatever it is, it's killing him. Caitlin said as she saw his vitals drop. Daniels. It must be some kind of poison he infected Naruto with. Dr. Wells said. Well, we can cure him, right? I mean, we're at Star Labs. Linda said. Can we even cure Dark Force infection? Cisco asked. Tsunade. Barry, get Tsunade. She healed you. Maybe she can heal Naruto. Caitlin said as Barry nodded and super sped away. He appeared in a second with Tsunade who looked confused. What was that? Tsunade asked as she saw Naruto. Naruto. What happened? New metahuman. He drained Naruto of his bioelectricity and infected him with some kind of virus. Dr. Wells said. Can you heal him? Linda asked. I can try. Tsunade said as she walked over and placed her hands on Naruto's chest. She concentrated as her hands glowed green and her bioenergy began healing Naruto and his vitals improved. She kept healing him as his pulse began to go back to normal, but the infection wasn't going away. Tsunade kept up her healing but after a minute, the fatigue began to set in and she stopped as she nearly collapsed to her feet had Barry not caught her. Easy. Barry said as he helped her to a chair. They looked and saw that Naruto's pulse improved but dropped again as the infection kept spreading and was now reaching his heart. It didn't do anything. We need to get rid of this infection if we want to help him. Caitlin said. Okay, but how? I mean, we don't exactly know what we're dealing with. Cisco told her. I have an idea. It's a little crazy but might work. Dr. Wells said. Well, good because crazy might be what we need. Tsunade replied. It involves M's Park. Dr. Wells said as Linda looked at him. What can I do? She asked. I believe that the night you got your powers when you were trying to find out your story, your powers might be able to purge the infection. If Daniels infected Naruto with Dark Force, then the only way to purge it could be by exposing it to pure light. Dr. Wells said. Pure light can cancel dark. Cisco said. But Linda's light reaches temperature up to 4000 Kelvin. That could kill him. Caitlin said. Not if she concentrates on the infected area. Dr. Wells replied. I just found out how to use my powers. I don't know if I can do something like that. Linda said. You can. I believe you can and so does Naruto. Dr. Wells said as he rolled up to her. Ms. Park. Everything I've seen about you and what Naruto has told me only proves that I know you can do this. Your powers are yours to control, not the other way around. Naruto needs you right now, Ms. Park. You can do this. Linda looked at Naruto as she walked over and stood by his side. She placed her hands on his chest and concentrated. Her hands began glowing as Naruto hissed in pain. Hold him down, Dr. Wells said as Barry, Cisco, and Caitlin held him down to the gurney. Sorry, Naruto, but this could save you. Linda focused as her light began to enter Naruto's body and purge the Dark Force infection, causing it to recede. She kept up her light as the infection was purged from Naruto's system. That's enough, Dr. Wells said as Linda stopped, and Naruto stopped thrashing. Naruto, can you hear me? Linda asked as Naruto opened his eyes. How are you feeling? Like someone put a campfire on my chest. Naruto said, causing her to chuckle as Barry helped him sit up. What happened? Where's Daniels? He's gone. He hit you with some kind of dark force infection. You'd be dead now if it wasn't for Linda. Barry said as Naruto looked at her. I thought Dr. Wells told you to be careful. Linda told him. Comes with the job. Thank you. Naruto said as Linda kissed him and helped him up. So, now we know that Marcus Daniels is in fact a meta with the ability to control dark force. Cisco said as they moved to the cortex. And he's the one who killed Reynolds and Croyd. Naruto said. But why would he kill Croyd as he was like a father to him? Caitlin asked. I don't think he meant to. Daniels said that Croyd went to Reynolds to tell him what happened. My guess is that he realized that Daniels was too dangerous, and he needed help. Naruto said. That would match up with what Dr. McGee told us. He felt responsible for what happened and tried to fix it. Barry said. You're right about that. I hacked into Reynolds' phone and it turns out there were numerous calls from a payphone near where their bodies were found. The calls started a month after Croyd was let go and continued after the particle accelerator exploded. Cisco said. Reynolds probably sent the letter to Linda about what they were trying to do in case something bad happened. Caitlin said. Well, something bad did happen. Now we've got a crazy guy out there with the powers of cosmic radiation and we don't know what he wants. Cisco said. What he wants is revenge. He feels that everyone at Mercury Labs is responsible for firing him and ruining his life. He thinks that he's carrying on Croyd's legacy by taking out the people who didn't believe him. And he has the powers to do it. He can kill just by touching people. I think that's what he was trying to do to me. Naruto said. Mr. Daniels appears to be able to absorb all types of energy. He absorbed the kinetic energy from the bullets, thus rendering them useless, and since the body runs on electrical impulses he can absorb bioelectricity as well. Dr. Wells said. So, he went to kill Reynolds and when Croyd was there, he touched him and killed him by accident. Barry said. And thus, began the trip to Crazy Town. Cisco said. Okay, so how are Naruto and Barry going to stop someone they can't even touch and who can absorb energy? Tsunade asked. Sounds impossible. Caitlin said as Linda got an idea. Maybe not. She said. What do you mean? Barry asked. If his dark force infection is anything like his powers, then maybe we just need light to stop him. Linda said. Exposing him to more energy than he could absorb at once. If he is overloaded, it might cancel out his powers. Dr. Wells said. Like using too much energy for a light bulb. Once we do that, we can put him in the pipeline. Cisco said. Okay, so how are we going to expose him to that kind of light? Maybe we could rig up some kind of light projector. Naruto said. I'll do it. Linda said as they looked at her. If my powers stop the virus, I can stop him. Whoa, Linda, this is way too dangerous. You just heard how dangerous Daniels is. You saw it. Naruto told her. I know, but the longer he's out there, the more people get hurt. Besides, I'm the only one who can stop him. Linda said. Linda, he could kill you. I don't want you to get hurt. Naruto said as Linda smiled. I know, but I'm not just going to stand here and do nothing when I can actually help. Linda said as she kissed him on the cheek. Okay, so what would I need to do? If our theory is correct, hit him with as much light energy as you can. Once he absorbs too much, it should overload him. Cisco will prep a cell in the pipeline for him. Dr. Wells said as Linda nodded. Cisco walked over to a shelf and picked up a small box and handed it to her. Here, I managed to make these on short notice. Extra strength sunglasses should protect you from the bright light. Cisco said as Linda nodded. Linda opened the box and she saw what looked like regular sunglasses and put them on. Okay, now we just need to find him. Linda said. If he's after revenge, then he'll probably be heading to Star Labs. Dr. Wells said as he brought up CCTV camera footage and they got an image of Daniels a block away from Mercury Labs. Be careful. Daniels is dangerous and unhinged. Be patient and wait for an opportunity to strike. Right. Naruto said as he held Linda by the side and he and Barry super sped through the city. Daniels walked through the city as he nearby streetlights and car lights flickered as he absorbed more energy on the way to Mercury Labs to get his revenge. People ran away in fright as streetlights exploded when Daniels walked by. He passed another street when two blurs appeared in front of him. You two again. Didn't I kill you already? Daniels asked, pointing to Impulse. Guess it didn't stick. Impulse replied. Don't worry, this time it will. Daniels said as he summoned more dark energy and fired it at the two, but they super sped out of the way. Impulse looked and saw the energy was a lot stronger than before. Guys, is it just me or this guy a lot more powerful than before? Impulse asked. It's not you. It seems he's absorbed a lot of energy since your last fight and it's making him stronger. Dr. Wells said. Right. Let's hope this plan works. Flash said. Come on, Daniels. Give us your best shot. The Flash and Impulse blade hit the target and kept Daniels' attention as Linda was waiting in the alley and steadying her nerves. She looked and saw the destruction Daniels was causing and started to second-guess herself. This is crazy. Okay, calm down, Linda. You can do this, she said to herself as she finally stepped out of the alley and walked out into the street. Hey. Daniels turned and saw a woman wearing sunglasses in the street. Leave them alone, Linda shouted as confident as she could, but she was still nervous. She concentrated as her hands began to glow. Wrong time, wrong place. Daniels said as he fired a dark energy blast at her and she raised her hands, making a light shield which cancelled out his dark force. What the? It worked, Linda said, shocked it actually worked. Interesting. Daniels said he fired another dark energy blast and this time it hit Linda and knocked her away. Ow, okay that hurts. Linda said as Daniels fired another blast, but Impulse ran by and moved her out of the way. Linda, are you okay? He asked. Yeah, just a little scraped up. Now, I'm ready for some payback. Linda said as her hands glowed. Kick his ass. Impulse told her as they saw Flash still playing hit the target. Hey, Daniels. You need some sunshine. Linda shouted as she fired her light beams as Daniels fired his dark energy and the two beams collided in air. Impulse and Flash shielded their eyes as the collision created a huge spectacle of bright light. The collision of dark force and light ended up creating a visual array of changing colors of light as the two beams struggled for dominance. At first, it seemed that Daniels had the upper hand as the dark force pushed back the light, but Linda concentrated more and more as her light began to glow brighter. It got so bright that Daniels, Impulse, and the Flash needed to close their eyes. The small lapse in concentration is all Linda needed as she pushed her light beam and it overpowered Daniels' dark force and hit him as he began absorbing the energy. Daniels grit his teeth as the energy soon became too much for him to absorb, causing him to fall to his knees as his body felt like it was on fire. ARH! Daniels shouted as dark force energy exploded out of his body and knocked Linda, Flash, and Impulse back and onto the ground. Still hurts, Linda said as Impulse ran over and helped her up. Hey, you okay? He asked as she nodded. Yeah, I'm good, Linda replied. You were amazing, Impulse said as Flash walked over. Yeah, nicely done, Flash said as they turned and saw Daniels was lying in the street, unconscious. Impulse walked over to check his pulse and got one. He's alive, just knocked out. Guess the energy was too much for him, Impulse said. He really needed to get some sunshine, Linda said as Impulse and Flash chuckled. Nicely done, Light, Flash said as they super sped back to Star Labs and put Daniels in a cell. They looked at Daniels who blasted and pounded the cell with his dark force, but it didn't budge. You sure it will hold? Linda asked. Yes, the cell has a reflective energy field so anything he blasts the cell with just bounces back, Dr. Wells said. Good, because I think dealing with dark force once is enough, Cisco said as he closed the door to the pipeline. Nicely done, Linda, Caitlin told her. Yeah, that was awesome, Cisco said. I agree with them, Ems Park. Excellent work. We couldn't have stopped Mr. Daniels without you, Dr. Wells said. Thanks guys. To be honest, I think a lot of that was adrenaline, Linda said. Don't sell yourself short. For your first time out in the field, you did a good job. Barry said. Yeah, take it from us. The first time in the field can be nerve-wracking, but you did great. Badass and strong. I knew you had it in you. Naruto said as Linda smiled. I now know why how you and Barry go out and save the city. There was a bit of rush. Linda said. Does that mean we can expect you to help again in the future? Cisco asked, hopeful. Please say yes because I have some really great ideas on a suit. Linda chuckled as she brushed some hair behind her ear. Maybe, Cisco, if I need to. For now, I think I just want to get a better grasp on my powers before I become a superhero. Linda said. Superheroine, actually. And you're more than welcome to come to Star Labs whenever you need. Dr. Wells said as he and the others left, leaving Naruto and Linda. So, are you really okay? Naruto asked. Yeah, I'm fine. I was terrified out there, but when Daniels and I were in that energy clash, there was a real rush. Is that what it's like out there when you go and save the city? Linda asked as Naruto chuckled. A little. You get used to it. Are you serious about before? Naruto asked. About being a superheroine. Maybe. If I can help you guys, shouldn't I? Linda asked as Naruto walked up to her and kissed her. Whatever you want to do, I'll support you 100%. Naruto said as he kissed her forehead. But don't think that'll stop me from worrying about you. Likewise. No more secrets between us, right? You don't have any more powers that I should know about? She asked as Naruto shook his head no. No, you know everything I do. There might be some stuff I'll have to catch you up on. Naruto said as Linda smiled. Naruto Namikaze, my speedy superhero. She said as Naruto smiled. Linda Park, my lightning rod. Naruto said as Linda looked at him. Lightning rod? She asked. Yeah, lightning rod, you know, I'll always find you. Naruto said as Linda just walked away. You don't like that. How about my lighthouse? Try again, Speedy, she said as Naruto walked after her. Okay, how about furnace of my heart? Naruto asked as she shook her head. I'm not that great with the nickname thing. That's more Cisco's skill.